name and the certification of the meeting?
The certification of meeting has been advertised according to Sunshine Law.
Please call the roll.
Mr. De Niro.
Here.
Mayor Kimball.
Here.
Mrs. Inaugurado.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Conti. Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mrs. Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Gold.
Here.
Ms. Rita. Mr. Harris. Mr. DiBiase.
Here.
Mr. DiLorenzo.
Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for the October 12th, 2017 meeting?
So moved.
Close call roll.
Mr. De Niro.
Yes.
Mayor Kimball.
I abstain.
Mrs. Inaugurado.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Yes. That's it. Chairman's comments. We have the resignation of our Chief of Police, Mark Minikini, from the board, effective October 13th. He was an excellent member, and he gave us insight from a police perspective on a lot of issues, and we're sad to see him go, but we're looking forward to our Deputy Chief taking over for him. Correspondence and payment of bills. Does anybody have any questions or comments? If not, at this time, I will turn the meeting over to our Ms. Inaugurado. Mrs.
Old business. Memorialization of PB 2013-02, 11 Franklin Avenue. We'll take that one at a time. Motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
Please, roll call.
Mrs. Inaugurado.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
That's it.
Chairman will continue the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. We have the memorialization of PB 2017-486-500 Jerome Street.
So moved. Second.
Close call roll.
Mr. De Niro.
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurado.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Yes. We have the review, updated master plan, and amended zoning ordinance. Don?
Right. Mr. Chairman, this is going to be a several-minute discussion because next week will be the actual public hearing on this. Mr. DiLorenzo and Lois, next meeting rather, Mr. DiLorenzo and Lois and I have been working on notices that will go out in time for a public hearing to be held.
Very good.
So what has been distributed so far is the update.
Why don't we
to the master
swear you
plan.
in?
Okay.
Okay, I'll go that way.
Please raise your right hand. Hold the truth and nothing but the truth so help you God.
I do.
Please say your name for the record.
Donald Meisel, M-E-I-S-E-L. Again, last month I was here, I distributed paper documents to you as well as electronic copies of both the master plan update and the series of ordinances that coincide with the updates that are proposed. The last master plan that you had done was back in 2007. There was another element done in 2009. So it's been 8 years since you actually updated the master plan. I received no comment from the public who I sent these documents to. I received no comment from any of you other than the subcommittee that met back in September. Their comments were incorporated into the report that you have now. I did want to share a few things with you relative to the population of Belleville. I looked at it very closely today. Basically, you've had a population from 1960 of between 34 and 36,000 people. The question that came up last time I was here was about your enrollment in the school system. So let me just read these numbers to you. In 2010, 4,500. 2011, 4,675. 2012, 4,680. 2013, 4,468. 2014, 4,468. No change at all. 2015, 4,544. That's an additional 76 students. The following year, this year, 4,461. 83 students less than last year. So your school population has been stable, if not declining just a bit over that period of time. But your population certainly is very stable. And the issues that were identified in 2007 are pretty much the issues that you're still trying to address now. The Washington Avenue corridor. Some of the major changes that are in this document are zoning changes, certain parcels of property that aren't quite appropriate for the zone that they're in now. So there's 5 or 6 of those. I've also worked very closely with Mr. Di Lorenzo to work on some other zoning or code updates, if you will, that actually effectuate the goals of the master plan. So again, you're welcome to contact me between now and the next time. It is important to contact the municipalities in going over the master plan document. They talk about Nutley, they talk about Bloomfield, they talk about Newark and all the things that they're doing. I will reemphasize that redevelopment is key in the master plan that you're looking at. And you have several projects that are being undertaken now. The Spring Lake redevelopment area that was designated a couple months ago, that's a key parcel of land. It's mentioned in the plan several times. And you'll be receiving a plan for that site in the near future.
Silver Lake.
Silver Lake. What did I say?
Spring
Spring Lake. Silver Lake. Spring Lake is North Carolina. Sorry. So it means you were paying attention as well. So again, the counselor told me I should come back next month to be ready for the formal public hearing.
Yes.
Again, any questions that you may have, please feel free to contact me. Public is in the same boat. I've shared the documents that I shared with the board last month.
And next month, the public will obviously be addressing us. Tonight, we're only hearing this brief summary from you, so thank you.
Any questions, concerns?
Question
Yes.
that I know we brought up at the subcommittee. It's minor, but the pool setback from the lot lines. It was originally 4 feet, and now it's moved to 3 feet from the rear side lot lines, and I understand that it has to be 10 feet away from a main structure. I really don't get what that 1 foot adjustment would make. And I would say that my biggest concern when it comes to a swimming pool, only because I was directly affected years ago by it, is if an above-ground pool splits a seam, and it happens to split the seam towards the neighboring property, you'd be surprised the force that it causes. And that's a concern of mine, even though it's 1 foot. I think that it would be in our best interest not to make it even narrower than it is now. I don't see why we would for 12 inches change it.
What I'm reading from my document is that it reads as follows. Amend ordinance regulations pertaining to private swimming pools to require pools and required apertures like filters, heating elements, and other related equipment to be set back a minimum of 3 feet from the side and rear lot lines. So I guess it must have been a minimum of 4 previously?
Correct. So to go bring it down, it just doesn't make any sense, knowing that it's not the in-ground pools that are the issues. It's the above-ground pool if a structural seam should split most of that water is,
Maybe Frank can comment on that, but I can only think that you have 25-foot wide lots in a lot of places.
I understand.
And that's where that 3
I
foot is probably
understand,
coming
but
from.
my concern is not so much for the owner of the property where the pool is installed, but if the steam happens to go towards the neighbor, which you did with me, it wasn't anything foreseeable. It was a relatively new pool, but it went towards my property, and you would be surprised what it did. And I would say, more than 10 feet away from it in our property. So there's quite a force. So why go when I just leave it the way it is, in my opinion?
I tend to have an agreement with that because it seems through the years we keep getting closer and closer to the property lines, and I think we have to fault it sooner or later. Because
Mrs.
we even
DiLorenzo?
have pools as far as touching a house
You got any,
in some properties.
That's fine, you can
That's
stay
not
4
good.
feet, that's not an issue.
Thank you, Mr. DiLorenzo.
That's the only issue we have to address as a group. That'll be wonderful.
Right, and if
1
you do
foot.
that, sir, then you could take the word draft off
Right.
and make it your
Make it
official
Yes, I can do that.
presentation.
Anything else of any nature that needs to be addressed, because the document that we issue will no longer be a draft. It'll be for public and for neighboring municipalities.
I would like to give you a call because there are a few intersections that I have concerns about that are really kind of bottlenecking that are not listed on here.
There were a list of about 5. Here are the
Right.
intersections that are identified in the plan. Franklin Avenue and Belleville,
Right.
Belleville Avenue, Franklin Avenue, and I can't say, Joraleon, Washington Avenue, Butker Street, Droleman and Main, and Droleman and Hoover. Those are the 5 that are identified. And certainly I can identify more if
There's
it's
at
cause
least
for
2 more
concern.
that I
Mill and Franklin?
Did you get the email? Can you email it to me? You're welcome to call too, but if I have a paper trail, it helps me get the document.
All right, I'll contact Lois.
And again, you're welcome to call me, it's fine.
Question, are we allowed to calculate the reservoir cemetery as open space? I thought that the issue was, and I always thought that was unfair, that if there was a county golf course and we were responsible in Belleville for town open space, that we couldn't count that. Can we count that? In the open space calculations, especially now that the state's projecting,
I don't think in your Rossi you can count a cemetery. I'm not sure. I can certainly find out.
well, it says permitted principal use, and I was wondering whether if it's permitted principal use, would we be allowed to use those open space areas, though they're technically perhaps connected to the county, and that be part of our open space formula requirement?
Well, what we're doing as a master plan technique or a planning technique is creating an open space zone. So you certainly are welcome to zone those properties open space. Frank, do we do that? Do we zone those cemeteries as open space? We do not currently.
But we can.
We
because
certainly
that
could,
That would
yeah.
solve some of the issues that we have with open.
I don't know how you would count it against your inventory, but certainly they can be zoned.
Well, if it was counted, if it was allowed to be included in our inventory, it would help us a lot, because I think the percentages for Belleville's designation of open space is unreasonable, considering that there's so many areas already used by golf courses and all. That it would give us more flexibility.
Of course, the plan points out that the county is the major open space holder.
Right.
And it's very hard to remedy that from
Exactly.
from
We
the
don't
position that you're in.
Exactly.
Again, what you can use is you use redevelopment as a tool to leverage some open space back. I think the Rose property is an ideal situation. You guys heard the site plan. They still have 11 acres, of which part of that land is the old Morris Canal. So if you're after more open space, and when they come back with their site plan, it's certainly within your right to ask for some dedication in exchange for the development that would go there. I mean, to me, that's an ideal place to look. Anywhere the Morris Canal touches Belleville should be examined very closely.
No other board members have questions? Thank you.
But thank you for that input, and again, more input is welcome, and I'm sure we'll get more input next month.
Okay,
Okay,
next month,
thank you very much.
New business, anything anyone would like to bring up? If not, we have an application before the board, PB 2017-07, Belleville J&S Holding LLC, 212-216, Belleville Avenue, demolish 2 existing structures, a RITA'S Lemon Ice, and a 2-family dwelling, and build a building for a 7-Eleven store.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any preliminaries, or should I go ahead and open?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, council's name is Robert Gassion, the firm is Gassion Blanco, 524 Union Avenue in Belleville. This is an application to construct a new 7-Eleven neighborhood store at 212-216 Belleville Avenue. As was indicated, we're seeking to demolish 2 old existing structures which are on the site. A 2-family residence and the former Rita's Lemon Ice, which the older people here remembered as Jackie's Lemon Ice. The corner of Belleville and Union, both county roads, both Belleville Ave and Union Ave are county roads. The applicant proposed to operate a convenience store on a 24-hour basis. In order to develop the store, my client is seeking preliminary and final site plan approval and certain bulk variances. The witnesses you'll hear from today are Jay Patel from Belleville J&S Holding LLC, Callisto Burton, the site and traffic engineer, Jazz Arjani, the architect, Keith Graham of 7-Eleven, and Steve Lyden, the planner. Mr. Patel will advise what it is he is seeking approval for. Callisto Burton will describe the property and discuss the surrounding properties. He will also review the proposal and the bulk variances. Mr. Arjani will describe the existing structures and the proposed new building. Keith Graham, the representative of 7-Eleven, will discuss why the property is being proposed for a new 7-Eleven and the general operations of such a store. He will also discuss security, noise, and litter. Mr. Burton will return to the witness stand to describe the parking and circulation. He will also review the adjacent roadways and traffic activity. He will discuss the gap study and his conclusions. The final witness will be the planner, Steve Lyden. He will review the planning and zoning considerations and the statutory criteria. He will present his basis for approval and the negative criteria. I'd like to call the first witness, Mr. Patel.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
Jay Patel, Jaypatel.
Mr. Patel, what is your business address?
1212 Madison Avenue, Harrison, New Jersey, zip code 07503.
And what is your occupation?
Self-employed?
And are you a member of Belleville J&S Holding LLC?
Yes, that's correct.
And is J&S Holding the owner of 212-216 Belleville Ave?
That's correct.
And very briefly, what is it you are seeking to do at this location?
We're seeking to get approval for the 7-Eleven neighborhood convenience store.
I have no further questions to this witness. I just wanted you to see who the owner is, really.
And I also have my wife Sonia Patel with me here.
I'd like to call the site engineer, Mr. Callisto Burton.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Callisto Burton, C-A-L-I-S-T-O, B-E-R-T-I-N.
Mr. Burton will be appearing as the site engineer and the traffic engineer. I'll be qualifying him at this time for both, and then I will recall him later in the evening should we get to it with regard to the traffic study. Mr. Burton, your business address
66 Glen Avenue in Glen Rock, New Jersey.
and your occupation.
I'm a licensed professional engineer.
How long practicing in the field of civil engineering and traffic engineering?
Since 1984.
From what school did you graduate and what degree did you obtain?
I have a degree of civil engineering from Villanova University, a master's degree in engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute,
And you're a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
and 5 other states.
And briefly give the board the benefit of some of your experience in site engineering and traffic engineering.
Yes. I began actually working for a traffic engineering firm in 1984. I eventually left and started Burton Engineering in 1986. We have now almost 50 employees. Our main office is in Glen Rock. We have another office in Massachusetts. My specialties are in site plan design and in traffic engineering.
Are you a member of any societies, professional groups connected with your work?
Yeah, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, National Society of Professional Engineers.
We'll accept your witness as an expert.
Thank you. So he's accepted as an expert in both fields.
Correct.
I've appeared before this board going back 25 years, maybe 30.
There was a builder in this town named Mr. Belleville, who you guys may or may not remember. Callisto testified on his behalf a number of times. What documents were prepared for this application?
We prepared a preliminary final site plan set. It's the set here. It's dated 8/6/16. In that set also are the building elevations. They're connected to that set, which are the floor planning elevations. We submitted stormwater calculations, and we also submitted a traffic impact study. The traffic impact study was dated September 28th, 2017.
In addition to those documents, what exhibits do you have with you tonight?
Well, we have what I just mounted on the board, was just an aerial photograph, and then I have a rendering of the site plan. Should we mark those now?
Why don't you start by describing the property in question? I'm sure you want to use that
Okay.
to describe it.
Well,
So,
I'm going to use this first exhibit. We call it an aerial exhibit, and I think it does have today's date on it. Should I mark this as
so
A1?
A1, I believe.
A1 is just an aerial photograph. It makes it easy to see the site. North is up, so we have Union Avenue up. We have across the page Belleville Avenue, and then Union Avenue continues south. And the site is outlined in this white line there, at the corner of the northeast corner of Belleville and Union Avenues. It's a 10,500 square foot site. We've got frontage on 2 roads. It's about 110 feet in the north-south direction, but it's only 90 feet in the east-west direction. That's the lot depths. There are 2 buildings on the site. What is now, or was formerly the RITA'S, which is at the corner, and there's a house next to it, and then there's a connector canopy that connects the 2. And there's a parking lot in the back of the site that has, right now, 18 cars. There's an ugly green chain link fence across the front of the property, and that same front, that's the Belleville Avenue side, and that same fence runs across the north property line. So the site is mostly paved, and you can see it's mostly covered by pavement. There's a small area that does have some lawn and gravel on the site.
And there's really no on-site drainage?
No, there's no, thank you. The site slopes to the streets, all the pavement runs off, all the stormwater runoff runs off onto the streets.
Will you review the surrounding properties?
Sure. These will stay over here. North of the site is a driveway to this parking lot and a multifamily house. To the east of the site is the social club. There's a house. It's all paved behind the house with a parking lot, and then there's another parking lot. To the south, we have Belleville Avenue, and across from Belleville Avenue, it's all commercial with some residential above. The same when you head west across Union Avenue, you have some commercial properties, And as we head north, we get into multifamily and then single-family residential, and eventually the school.
Would you describe the proposal before the board this evening?
Yes, we propose to knock down the buildings and rip up all the pavement. We'll go to what I'll mark now as A2. A2 is a landscape rendering, also dated today's date. This is a colored version of the site plan without all the notes. So we're proposing to construct what's shown in brown here is a 2,565 square foot 7-Eleven building. The RITA'S in the house were up along the front line on Belleville Avenue. We're pushing this back so that the front of the store faces Union Avenue and there's parking on both sides. The setback, there's a zero setback on the streets. And there's 15, well, we call both of the other lines rear yard setbacks, so there's 15-foot setbacks. I guess the north line could be considered a side, and it would only be zero. But regardless, we thought it was better to have the building here in the back corner, the northeast corner, with parking along the front, rather than put the front of the building up on the street with the parking in the back, where there's no doors to get into the store. We will have 10 parking spaces, and then we're having 2 driveways. There's an existing driveway on Union Avenue. We're going to relocate that and make it a little smaller. And then we're proposing a driveway in Belleville Avenue. And I'm showing here as a trash enclosure along the side of the building. There'll be a freestanding sign at the street intersection. Currently, I didn't mention before, RITA'S has a sign at the northwest corner of the property that'll come down. And we have some landscaping.
Now, will there be a dramatic improvement in sight line with regard to this property?
Well, I think so. One of the advantages of moving the building away from the intersection is that now you can see through the intersection, much like the other building on the northwest corner of the intersection. So, as you come up Belleville Avenue, or head west on Belleville Avenue, the buildings block your view north on Union Avenue. So now this obviously will open it all up.
And would you describe the site's grading and drainage?
Sure. Union Avenue slopes downward as you come from the north heading south, and Belleville Avenue slopes down as you head east. The site, though, is relatively flat, 1.5–2% slope, and it will continue that. The property will actually slope towards the intersection and come out. We've increased the pavement. I think it was 79%. Yeah, existing is, I'm sorry, I have it here. It's 75 or 79% paved. Now with the new proposal, yes it is, it's 79% impervious, and we're now going to be 92% impervious. But what we're doing to help compensate for that is the building roof, which is about a quarter of the site, will be connected to an underground drywall system, so that water will be recharged into the ground and it'll overflow into the street drainage system. So we're actually, if we took the building roof out, we have 69%. So we kind of lowered the amount of area that's going to run off to the street by 10%.
Would you just, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, but it does generally, otherwise the drainage will flow out the driveways to the inlet on Union Avenue, and then there's inlets further east on Belleville Avenue.
Will you review the proposed utilities for this building?
We're anticipating that the utilities that go to the current buildings, the house and the RITA'S, are probably too small, and they come from Belleville Avenue, and we'll reuse, well, we'll put in new gas and electric services. Maybe we can reuse a sewer line, but we'll TV that.
Would you review the lighting?
There will be 3 wall lights, and they're going to be similar to the area lights, and there's 3 area lights. And the area lights all the lights are LED. So we used to have that shoebox type thing. The shoebox got a lot smaller because it's LED lights and we don't have all the equipment. So there'll be 3 LED lights, area lights, and then the wall lights. And we can control the lights. That's one great thing about LEDs. We can put them on timers. So the lighting that's shown on the plan has in the neighborhood of 3-4 foot candles up to 8. Right underneath the light, it might be 12-foot candles. That would be appropriate during business hours. And, well, even though the store's proposed to be open 24 hours, later at night, we can dim the lights down to, say, 2-foot candles. They have that ability.
Would you review the fencing and the shrubbery?
Yes. I mentioned there's that ugly green, the chain link fence for the green and white slats. That's along the north property line. We originally had proposed to replace that fence, but the fence has become part of the tree, the large tree that's grown in on the property line. So rather than try, well, it would damage the tree if we were to replace the fence. So we're going to keep the fence, take the slats out, and put new slats in. That's not on the plan. That's just as we prepared for the hearing and went to the site, we realized we'll keep that fence. There's not a lot of room for landscaping, but we will have it at the street intersection. We'll have some shrubs and grass area or ground cover, and then by the Belleville Avenue driveway. The parking spaces that are proposed are 9 by 19, which is the municipal ordinance. Common practice is 9 by 18. We didn't want to have any variances, so we have it 9 by 19. In the engineer's report, he suggested possibly moving the building another foot away from the rear property line and reducing the size of the parking just to get the building a little bit further from the property line. I think it might be better to keep the building where it is. Just another thought, make the parking spaces 9 by 18. We've advertised for 9 by 18 parking spaces, so we can increase the this curb line along the sidewalk. Instead of having the curb right up near the sidewalk, we can bring it a foot or so away and put a little planting in there to delineate the parking lot from the sidewalk.
What is the zoning at this site?
We are in the BA mixed-use district, where a convenience store is permitted. We comply with most of the bulk requirements. The minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet. This is 10,513 square feet. The lot width is supposed to be 100, I'm sorry. Yeah, the lot width is supposed to be 50 feet. We're at 110 feet. But the lot depth is required at 100, and we're 90 feet. So this, as I mentioned, the distance here is 90 feet. I guess it depends which way you want to calculate it. I guess if we turned it around and called this the front, we'd have the proper depth and we wouldn't have any variance. Just, I guess, let the planners make that decision. There's no front yard requirement on either street. We call both of them front yards. But we have a 49-foot setback from Union Avenue. And the rear yard is supposed to be 15 feet. If you call both of them rear yards, and we violate that, we're a little less than 2 feet at the narrowest point from the rear yard. There's no side yard because we have 2 rears and 2 fronts. The building coverage is permitted at 50%, and this building is at 23%, which I mentioned before. So we're underdeveloped from that standpoint. The building can be 2.5 stories, 30 feet. We're proposing less than 22 feet, 1 story. The fence is, we called out a variance for a fence, because we're going to put a 6-foot fence. I think the fence along the side is 5 feet or so, and we're going to keep that existing fence that's along the north property line. We can put a fence along the east property line between the building and Belleville Avenue. It would just be for aesthetics because we're right up against the social club, which is a block wall. And it's just a painted block wall, so maybe the fence would be a little bit more attractive. And that would be a solid privacy fence.
And did you have an opportunity to review Mr. DiLorenzo's letter and Mr. Harris's letter?
Yes, I have Mr. Harris' letter. I think I read Mr. DiLorenzo's, but I have Mr. Harris' letter here.
And you already commented on one of the statements made by Mr. Harris. Is there any further comment you have with regard to either of those letters?
Some of these points will be addressed later on, but number 5 on the second page of that letter talked about the parking space depth. And I just mentioned what I thought might be an appropriate way to get a little bit more landscaping along the perimeter of the property. Number 6, on his comment about the rear of the building. Originally, these plans that were submitted showed behind the building to be lawn. But again, it's only 1.9 feet wide here, it's 2.5 feet wide there, it doesn't really make sense. So it's better just to pave that area for housekeeping.
Here's Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter, in case
Okay.
you need a copy, if there's any comment you have.
Let me see, number 7, I did describe the proposed fencing and the possible conflict with an AC unit and the trees. So the tree was on the north property line, and I told you we'll keep that same fence because it's already part of the tree. And there's an air conditioning unit that's attached to the social club, but our fence will be below that. Question 8 said that we should have the concrete and the pavement designed for traffic. I'll get into the truck traffic and the vehicular traffic, but we will propose to have a delivery truck that will drive through the site so we can up the pavement specifications. And then number 9 is about having all the facilities ADA accessible, which we will have. I should mention on the current site, over here by the sidewalk, I don't know why there's like a 2-inch lip, and it's definitely a tripping hazard right along the front of the house that's there now.
And if you could briefly review Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter, I think numbers 6 and 7 might be what you want to discuss.
Okay. Yes, on Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter of July 17th. Number 6 says the entrance and exits to any such parking area shall be properly marked to show boundaries of the entrance. And that's probably the comment that led me to my suggestion that we put over more landscaping. Regardless, I think we have on both driveways a stop sign, but on the other side of the driveway, on the inbound side, we need to put a post or something like that just to identify where the driveway is. So this way someone doesn't pull in, not understand where the curb is and jump the curb with their car. I hate to admit this, but a couple weeks ago I went to a site where our firm did the structural and mechanical engineering on a building, so I wasn't familiar with the site when I drove in, and it wasn't marked, it was, and I jumped the curb with my car, and it was right at the inlet, and I slashed 2 tires on my car, but they had 38,000 miles, so they were almost due for a change, but it still was very embarrassing when I had to tell my client that he had to give me a ride home. So that's why all the more reason to have more demarcations for the entrance driveway. Premises in and around the driveways and parking areas shall be seated and where possible shielded by bushes and other appropriate plantings. Again, that prompted my comment about making the parking spaces a foot smaller so I can move the curb back a foot and put plantings in there.
I have no further questions to this witness.
My first question is that the social club next door,
Yes.
will use a hypothetical, they have to paint or they have to repair something. How would they do that?
Ask our client to come on the property and do it. I I think there's some municipal ordinances that allow you to go on the neighbor's property, like to trim your hedges and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm thinking repair, and you're saying there's a foot?
Excuse me?
You're saying that there's a foot in between?
We have, at this narrowest point, it's 1.9 feet, so it's just about 2 feet, right at the narrowest point, and then it gets a little wider back there.
So I'm thinking a ladder, roof problems or something that we have to have access, and you mentioned that you would put the fence up against the building?
No, well, their building is on the property line. Actually, if this were a side yard, I think the side yard requirement is 0, so we could be up against it. I think it's a side yard. No, well, we were proposing a fence. Now, it doesn't have to be there, it's just decorative, just to cover the masonry, the block building. But the fence is only along this one little section of the building.
But my question is hypothetically, that person needs to work on that building. If the fence is that close, if the property's only a foot, how do they do that? You're the engineer, I'm asking you.
Oh,
It's
well,
only hypothetical here. What if they had to work on it and how
well,
would they
Mr.
do it?
Patel say, I gotta go get on my roof, and I know him, so he'll say yes, but that's not the engineering question you want. The fence will prevent someone from getting on the roof, because there's not enough room between the social club and the property line to put a fence. So they'd have to come onto the neighbor's property, which is the subject property anyway, and make it a condition of the resolution. Good neighbor policy.
Okay, my second question is, that area, of course you mentioned there was a school right up the street.
Yes.
That's a pretty traveled area for children in the morning.
Yes, I was going to get into that a little later on. I was just
Wait.
setting it up.
All right, we'll wait then.
Yeah.
Mr. Burton is going to come back as the traffic engineer after some testimony from the architect and the 7-Eleven representative.
The drainage off of the roof, where will that be?
It's piped to a dry well that's in the parking lot.
Where's it coming off the roof?
Oh, it downspouts will take it, and it'll be piped into the building.
Into the,
I'm sorry, into the dry well.
I understand. What I'm asking, the reason I'm asking is where would the drainage be
Internal.
on the corner of the north side and the adjoining buildings? I've seen this narrow alley, and I'm saying, yes, your water's going into a downspout. What happens if the downspout blocks up?
Well, the downspout is inside the building.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I thought you said that, and
I was getting there, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah, the downspouts are inside the building, and then they'll come out in the front, looking at the building, the front left corner, and then go over to the dry well. So there's
Underneath.
nothing outside.
yeah, that's, okay. Because I was picturing that
Yeah, if they were to clog, it would overflow on the roof, but we have, and the architect can get into that a little bit more detail.
the facing is going to be plain brick, or do we wait for the architect for that?
He'll
Okay.
explain it. Yes, we have pictures.
How many employees?
I have I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The representative of 7-Eleven is here to answer
Okay.
those questions.
All right.
We're just setting it up for him now, and then I'll be next.
Each witness has their own capacity to testify.
Since the corner of the, where the sidewalk area is, I see that there's some greenery there. What I know exists now on the other side of the existing sidewalk is there are stanchions present.
Yes.
So that's obviously, I'm bringing that up because there's a reason for those stanchions being there, and
I assumed that because Rita's Ice was here, and I didn't get into that, and thank you for bringing it up, the pickup window for the ice cream shop was right there, and a lot of people would congregate at that intersection. There's a bench there now, that those stanchions were put in to protect all those people. They could be put in, if someone were to drive onto the property, I don't know that it's absolutely necessary, but it could be put in. But we don't have anybody congregating here anymore. The people will be on the sidewalk walking into the building.
What's the distance on the north side of the building from the building to the fence? It's more narrow than what's on the east.
That's 2 feet. It's parallel to that wall, and that is exactly 2 feet all the way
2
across.
feet. Okay, now that would be sufficient for the employees to really go back there and pick up garbage and stuff?
Well, yes.
Because even if it's maintenance free, it's still got
Right.
garbage stuff.
Well, sometimes what we've done on a building like this is just have a concrete pad that runs around the back, so we don't have weeds and things to grow. But yes, you have to go back there and clean, because especially with the fence here, well, actually, we don't, if we were to remove the fence along the side of the building, which is shown that we don't have it anymore, then it's open to the neighbor's property, and it would be open, it wouldn't be a tight area. I mean, what I'm getting at is that we show the fence coming just where the parking is, to provide a shield, so people don't walk into the neighbor's property, then that's a driveway. But along the building, there's no need for a fence because the building's there, so that would remain open. Our employees could still get over there to pick up litter, and 7-Eleven representative will get into that, but we won't have a fence there to trap debris.
But you have a trap on the east side.
Yeah, well, because on the east side, yes, there's a building between us, so that absolutely we have to get back there. You're right.
The trash pickup doors, so is it possible that when the trash is picked up, that not in a general matter, but it's very possible that you could have some minor debris at times that could float out because of the picking up of those dumpsters into those carts?
Well, that could happen. Generally, it doesn't, but it could happen, but the 7-Eleven will explain how they go around.
I understand, but there's 1.9 inches in there, so I'd have to really go on a diet to get in there.
You can get in there. You can get in there.
1.9 feet, not inches.
I meant 12, yes, I meant 1 point, but a foot and 9 inches. Like I said, I was fair, but it is a question as to if you had debris, minor debris buildup, but
Yes, we could get in here. Yes, it's narrow. It is narrow, but you and I can get in there,
that,
and we could with a rake, we could pull it out. Mr. Gassion can get in there too.
Any other members have questions for this witness? If not, we'll open it up to the public. And the questions would be just to what he testified to, as he is going to go back and discuss traffic, so. Mr. Frantantoni.
Mr. Chairman, if we're only going to ask questions, we won't swear the witness in. If there are going to be comments and questions, then we will swear the witness in.
I'm only asking questions. Mr. Burton, you stated that we have a municipal ordinance that says you can go on neighbor's property to access your building or work on it. Can you cite that ordinance?
I speculated. I didn't know if there was one. I know in some towns there are. I just speculated. And I asked if there was. I didn't say there was.
And also, did I hear you correctly, you're proposing 24, be open 24 hours?
Yes.
Thank you.
Victor?
Victor Mafucci. Are any of the parking spaces handicapped?
Yes, we have one handicap parking space right in the front by the door.
And, let me see. Is it 1.9 inches or 1 foot 9 inches?
1.9 feet, which is
Okay.
1 foot 10 and a half inches.
Okay.
Or 10.8 inches.
Have you considered large stones or gravel instead of paving it? This way you have more
Oh, in the back, behind the building? Well, we can do that, put a filter fabric down and then stones on top. Yeah, we could consider
Right,
that.
send more of the water would be good for sewer.
Yes.
And, I'm sorry, are there any new curb cuts?
Yes, yes. We will be replacing curbs and sidewalks along most of the street frontages, except at the corner, because that's relatively new pavement. But there's a driveway on Union Avenue will be made a little shorter, moved a little bit further from the intersection, and a new driveway on Belleville Avenue.
Okay. At that driveway, that would also be an exit?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, Victor, he's going to testify again as a traffic expert, and he'll go through all of that,
All right.
just so he gets it all in the record for you.
I'll wait till then for the next one. That's it for now. Thank you.
Mr. Delgertia? Jerry Delgertia, Lake Grove Street, Belleville. I may have missed this, but was there testimony about where the garbage dumpster will be?
Yes. Let me. The dumpster will be on the side of the building, on the south side of the building, and it'll face Belleville Avenue.
One other question I have.
And I'm sorry, it's an enclosed dumpster.
Okay.
It's enclosed, has gates. The architect will show you pictures of that.
Okay, the last question I have, based upon your testimony, is there any plans for any security cameras?
That will be the next.
Next one?
Two
Okay,
witnesses.
no problem. Thank
The
you.
7-Eleven representative will discuss that.
Okay.
Is anybody else in the public?
Hi, my name is Peter Mizzialico. I have the building 112 Union Avenue. I'm concerned about the 24 hours, 7 days a week. Tenants in there, the taxes keep getting
Objection, if
raised.
we could just have questions at this time, I understand that that's a concern, but at this time, just questions on this.
There will be a
You have
time
to
for that,
Explain
sir.
your concern.
When do I do that?
You'll be able to make that comment during operation or at the end of the hearing when we'll ask for
Okay,
comments.
all right. I just didn't want to sit here and then just get passed by and then that thing is over with.
No.
No.
I've never come to these things.
That doesn't happen.
Listen, I don't know.
Does anybody else in the public have questions of this witness? If not, Mr. Gassion, want to see the next witness?
Yes, Judge Ender?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and spell your name for the record.
My name is Jaswinder Arjani, Jasvinder, last name Arjani.
Mr. Arjani, your business address?
It's 66 Glen Avenue, Glen Rock, New Jersey.
And your occupation?
I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
And for how long have you been licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Since 2009.
And what degree do you have?
I have a bachelor's degree in architecture as well as 2 master's degrees in
And just briefly give the board of the benefit of some of your experience in the field of architecture.
I've been working as an architect since 1990. I've worked at Burton Engineering since 2002 and worked on similar projects. Convenience stores are a large part of what I work on in the office. And this is, and 7-Elevens also, there are many before this one that I've worked on.
Have you testified previously?
We'll accept your witness.
Thank you. So the witness is accepted as an expert in the field of architecture. Thank you. Mr. Arjani, what documents were prepared for this application?
Part of the set that you have, there's drawing number C 4.1 and 4.2, that's the building elevations, floor plans. Those drawings were prepared by me.
And will you be having any photographs or anything like that?
I
You put
do.
into the record?
Yeah, I do have an exhibit with some pictures of the existing and another 7-Eleven location that we worked on, that's opened recently.
And would you use that exhibit to describe the existing structure on the site?
The finishes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the existing?
Existing.
Yeah, I do have a picture of the
If
existing.
you could. And I believe that'll be A3. Thank you. And Mr. Arjani, is that a series of 4 photographs?
It is 5.
5, my apologies.
Should I just put today's date?
Okay. A3 is what matters.
And what this has is on the top right, left side is the existing picture of the existing site, and there are other 7-Eleven buildings which I'll refer to as I describe the building.
So you've shown the existing on the left side, and would you then, of course, describe the proposed building?
Sure. I'll start with the existing and then go on to the...
Go ahead.
As Mr. Burton mentioned earlier, there are 2 structures on the property that are connected with a little covered walkway. The white structure, this is the Union Avenue on the left and Belleville on the right. So the corner RITA'S is a 1-story structure. It's 825 square feet. And the structure behind, which is a 2.5-story, are two family dwelling units. And one of the entrances is from Belleville Avenue, and the second entrance is between the 2 buildings under the walkway. There is an entrance to the basement from inside as well. It's like a Bilco door, and the structure is not in a very good condition. It's probably a wood frame building. I have not been inside the building yet, but it also looks quite ugly there.
And would you discuss the proposed new structure?
Yeah, the proposed structure and the part of the set has the floor plans and elevations, which are drawing C 4.1 and 4.2. A typical 7-Eleven convenience stores are approximately 3,000 square feet, but considering the size of the property, the building footprint has been reduced to 2,565 square feet. But it's a typical 7-Eleven prototype details that we have used in terms of the floor layout as well as the appearance and the signs on the building and the details that you see on these 2 drawings. So if I may refer to drawing C4 point, in fact I have mounted them on the board here.
On the backs.
Okay. And this is part of the set, so I don't know if you want to mark these.
Gotta be trained. That's certified.
So it's drawing C4.2, which is a floor plan drawing, and it shows it's a typical convenience store, and I'm sure most of you have been to a 7-Eleven. It has a sales area, a walk-in cooler and freezer. There's a back room for utilities, a restroom, and an office. And the typical convenience items sold in the store: coffee, bottled, packaged food, and our next witness can explain the items a little more in detail if you have any, if you require more information. I'm sure you're familiar with the convenience store items. The proposed building would be a wood-framed construction, and the appearance of the building would again be a typical 7-Eleven prototype that they have been using. It's a nice looking brick-faced building, but these bricks are not real bricks. These are what they call Nichiha panels. These are cement panels which have an appearance of a brick. So on the top right is a 7-Eleven that we worked on, and it recently opened. It's on Route 20 in Patterson. And these are the Nichiha panels I just referred to. And the colors that we are proposing are, I brought this bottom right picture because these are the colors that we have proposed on this side. The top portion would be a lighter brown color brick and the bottom is the same red brick. So just to break the monotony on the face of the building. Of course, there'll be a canopy, it will be similar to this, a bronze color canopy. The storefront, all the metal elements would be bronze. It's an aluminum storefront with bronze color. The coping on top is a bronze. So the color combination is basically the red, the browns, and the bronze metal elements. The building, as you see in the picture, and the building elevations is a flat roof. At the low point, the height of the roof would be 16 feet. The ceilings at 12, and the 4 foot inside the building is for the roof structure and mechanical system. And on top of the roof, the parapet would be 4 feet for fall protection and to hide the equipment, rooftop equipment. Now, on this building elevations, the height mentioned is 20, and we have requested a 22 feet height on the cover sheet. The reason for that is when we work with the equipment, that extra 2 foot gives us a little bit of a room to, if the equipment is higher, we can raise the parapet another foot or 2 to hide the equipment. Of course, the mechanical equipment will be on the roof. It will be air conditioning unit, condensers for the coolers, and refrigerators. That's standard. There will be no basement in the building. Parapet, I just mentioned. And there was a question asked earlier, and the next witness will say more, but there will be security cameras, and in conjunction with the security cameras, employee training, the lighting inside and outside, it will be, it would reduce the safety concerns that some of you might have. There will be trash bins outside, which trash and recycling bins just outside on the sidewalk, which will prevent or minimize littering on the property.
Would you explain where the dumpster is going to be and describe it and the enclosure?
The location of the dumpster, Mr. Burton had testified to, it's on the south side of the building, and its back is the wall facing Belleville Avenue forms the back of the dumpster. There are 6-inch concrete pipe bollards proposed inside the dumpster to protect the building from any, when the garbage truck is picking up the container or keeping it back. So there would be pipe bollards, and in this exhibit on the bottom left is a picture of the dumpster enclosure at another site. The gates are urethane gates. It's a hard plastic, and they're solid. You can't see through them. The 2 side walls will match the building. Again, the same Nichiha panels. In colors, they will match what is proposed on the building. And the size of the dumpster is 10 by 20. It can accommodate 2 containers, a regular trash and a recycling container.
You'll have a private hauler, I believe?
Yeah, private hauler that would pick up in off-peak hours. It can be accessed from both sides, so if a hauler were to access the site from, if it was a back loader, it would access from Union Avenue, and if it is a front loader, it would be Belleville Avenue.
Would you review the proposed signage?
Yes.
And excuse me one second, while you're doing that, let me just pass this around because you might get a better look at the brick-like appearance. Get this passed around if I could. Thank you.
In fact, there are some, you could also look at the signs on those pictures, and we are proposing exactly the same size of signs. In fact, that property has 3 building signs, and we are proposing 2, because that's an aisle. It's a triangular property, has 3 fronts.
Just speak up a little bit louder if you would.
So the proposed signs, we are proposing a freestanding sign, which Mr. Burton referred to at the intersection of the 2 streets. And that is a 5 foot by 5 foot face, the sign itself. The overall height of the sign will be 15 feet, so there's a clearance of 10. And the picture that you see on that board is exactly the same size. It's a 5-foot square sign. So and the colors are also as you can see on those pictures. The building, there would be 2 business 7-Eleven signs, and there are 2 additional smaller signs proposed on the front face of the building. So the front wall that faces Union Avenue will have a larger sign. It's a 5-panel sign. The square footage is 104.2 square feet, and permitted is 144.65 based on 10% of the facade facing the front facade. And the right side wall, which is facing Belleville Avenue, is a secondary sign. The ordinance permits 5%, which is 42.9, and the proposed sign is a 3-panel sign. It's smaller than the front, but it still exceeds 42.9, and it will be at 65.2 square feet. The 2 smaller signs are 10.2 square feet. One is an ATM sign to tell the patrons there is an ATM inside. It's a Citibank ATM sign, and on the other side would be a sign that would advertise promotions, ongoing promotions at the time. So they're both 10.2 square feet. All the signs will be internally illuminated.
Now, did you have an opportunity to review Mr. DiLorenzo's and Mr. Harrods's letters?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any comments with regard to either of them?
There were 2 comments that I would like to address. Of course, one of them I've already done, that's the dumpster enclosure and its functioning. And the other one was the grease trap. I think the comment letter required us to place the grease trap outside the building. Typically, we do that when the grease traps are of a larger size, and that's for restaurants and for buildings of that nature where there's a lot of cooking and washing of equipment. Convenience stores, most of it is disposable, and the food is consumed off the property. So there's not a lot of washing. There's no cooking on the site except hot dog rollers and all. So the only equipment that goes to grease trap is a 3-compartment sink, and based on today's code, only 1 compartment of the 3-compartment sink goes to the grease trap. So it's a really small one, and we've always provided that inside the building, and the building code allows us to do that. So whatever we design, if this were to get approved, this building will meet the current construction code, whether it's building, plumbing, electrical, fire, all of that. So we don't think it's necessary to have the grease trap outside the building.
I have no further questions in this witness.
I still feel we need an outside grease trap, because the ones under the sinks and that, grease bypasses that and just creates problems in our system. So our system is bad enough as it is. So.
My client has indicated that they are willing to comply with Mr. Harrods's request.
Thank you.
I have a question. If there's a rear loader garbage truck, how do you access the site?
He would come in through here and pick us up.
And there's enough room for a truck to maneuver on site?
I believe it has, yeah. These are
I
dumpster
think
trucks.
that Mr. Burton would be better, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
keep
he just stated,
Yeah.
front loader, but rear loader, and they'd be able to access it, so we'll say.
Can I call Mr. Burton right now, and answer? He's already been sworn in.
Listen, he's coming back for traffic.
He's coming back for traffic.
Yeah, I'll wait.
You wait, okay, thank you.
Is there another exit from the building?
No, there's only one, and this building requires only one as per the code.
Will those doors open automatically, or is it the door opening system? How will it work?
It'll be manually, it's not an automatic door. But it'll all comply with whatever the requirements are in terms of pressure, panic hardware. You cannot lock them from inside. It's always open. So if there was an emergency, you just push the door, it opens and you walk out.
And a person who's in a wheelchair, so they would pull door out to get in,
To get in, yes.
okay?
And that's a standard practice, and we meet those requirements of ADA. That
And the width of the walkway at the entrance to the building from the handicap parking area, what's the width of that sidewalk?
it's 5 feet. So you require a 5-foot square in front of the door per ADA requirement.
Okay,
Handicap-
that's why,
And we have a 5-foot
that's what I
side.
was asking.
Yeah, we do have.
Any other board members have a question for this witness? If not, okay, Joe.
I believe he said there's 10 parking spaces.
Yeah, Mr. Burton said
Okay, which is...
that we do have that.
Right, which I believe is below what we require. In the winter time, what is the snow removal procedures?
Again, Mr. Burton will be testifying about
Okay.
that, and he would be better able to answer.
All right.
This gentleman is the architect.
If no more members of the board have questions, anyone in the public have questions of this witness? Mr. Franz Antoni?
Yes, I just have one. In regard to the dumpster, you said it was 10 foot by 20 feet?
That's correct.
No, the dumpster area.
No, the enclosure.
Area,
not the-
not the dumpster
The
itself.
enclosure, sorry.
Mr. Mafucci?
Got a few more. Where on the site will the freestanding sign be located?
It's at the intersection of Union and Belleville Avenue in this corner.
Now, that'll be illuminated from internally, correct?
Correct, and the box will be, yes.
And how high would that sign be?
15 to the top of the sign, 15 feet.
Is it possible that that light would shine into the apartments across Belleville Avenue? Second floor apartments?
I believe it's, are you talking about these apartments? Or
No, Belleville Avenue.
in the ones across?
Directly across from the
There's a
sign.
building across Belleville Avenue, over here. That's what he's asking about.
The sign is not facing that side, so if there's a slight glow to the sign, yes, but it would
Okay.
not, it's not facing that side.
Okay. You stated there's one door in and out.
Correct.
There's no emergency?
It does not require a second door.
If I work there, I'll come on. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a comment. That's good.
Anybody else in the public have a question of this witness? If not, we'll move on. Mr. Cascio, your next witness.
Yeah. Just call it. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Keith Graham, Graham.
Mr. Graham, by whom are you employed?
7-Eleven Inc.
And what is your position with them?
I'm a senior real estate representative
And for how long have you been with 7-Eleven?
for 16 years plus.
And would you just briefly tell us what your responsibilities are with the corporation?
I work with the corporation on identifying new sites for store growth, new 7-Eleven locations, and developing our network plan to grow store base.
And can you review why this location is being proposed for a new 7-Eleven?
Sure. Well, when we're looking to identify new areas to grow, we're really looking for an area where there's a demand for the customer, for convenience, So we'll take into consideration things like nearby stores, existing businesses. We also look at things like demographics. We also want to make sure that the property will allow us for the site attributes we need, things like building structure and visibility.
And can you tell us why you think this location benefits the township of Belleville?
Sure. Well, number one thing we like to do is, serve convenience to the community, to our customers. So we see demand for that. We're also, as you heard from some of the professionals, we're looking to improve the site, make the site better, functionally, aesthetically. But we're also looking to bring jobs into the area, as well as we'd like to work with the community. We love partnering with local police department. We have a lot of community programs that we implement, and even working with local schools and other community departments.
Would this location interfere with any other 7-Elevens in close proximity?
No.
And can you review the operation, starting with the days and hours of operation?
Yes, we will operate 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
And can you explain why you do that? You're talking about convenience, or how does that work?
Yeah, so like I said, the short answer is really that the number one thing that we offer is convenience to our customers. That's our business. And there's nothing more convenient than being able to go out whenever you need something and be able to go out and obtain that item during all hours of the day. The long answer is we've also done research, and we've noticed that people are working longer hours, longer shifts. We have EMT workers, police officers, hospital workers, and we want to serve that customer base as well.
How many employees do you have, and what's the maximum number at any one time?
We have 2 employees on per shift, and we operate 3 shifts. And we'll also have a store manager on hand as well.
And have you done any studies to indicate whether or not the customers come from pass-by traffic, or do you have destination customers more than pass-by traffic?
I know from studies, most of our customer base is pass-by traffic.
And there was a question raised by one of the board members just a moment ago, which will obviously be answered by the traffic expert. Do you think that the 10 spaces is adequate for this store?
We do, yes.
And can you explain why you reached that conclusion?
From the, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
You said you thought the 10 spaces was adequate. Do you have anything that you can base your conclusion on that you think is adequate? Is it short time that somebody's in the store, or the minimal number of customers, or whatever it may be?
So, yeah, we look at the average amount of time that our customers are in stores, which is 2.5 to 3 minutes, and we look at our peak hours and analyze all of that when developing our sites.
And as a result of that analysis, do you think 10 spaces is adequate for this proposed store?
We do, yes.
And would you review the proposed way deliveries are done?
Sure. We have a tractor trailer delivery that comes once, 2 times tops per week. That delivery averages anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And then we'll also have typically 1 to 2 smaller box truck deliveries that frequent the store.
And can you tell the board when the deliveries are usually made by these trucks?
Yes, we control a lot of that, and we have the deliveries scheduled during off-peak hours.
And does the store owner have flexibility when necessary with regard to that scheduling?
Yes, absolutely.
And there were some questions previously about security. Can you please review how security is handled at a typical 7-Eleven and how it would be handled at this location?
Sure. We take security very seriously. You know, I heard questions about surveillance system. We have a 24-hour surveillance system that's actually, you know, recently we link it to our local police departments so they can actually dial in and use our cameras, review our footage. Of course, we always partner with them locally as well. But, you know, we have 360-degree fisheye security cameras. We also have alarm systems, you know, inside the store, you know, with wireless remotes for our employees. We have time safe, you know, with cash controls as well. And then we have computer-based training, you know, CPT training that we use to train our employees on loss prevention best practices.
You have sufficient lighting for people to feel comfortable?
Yes, as you heard testimony before, that we use LED lighting, and the way that's done, you know, it reduces lighting, you know, to neighboring properties or, you know, to the outside. But what it really does is creates a fishbowl effect for our store, and we also we closely monitor, you know, positioning of signage and everything to have our lighting and visibility to maximize safety.
And do you have minimal window signs so that people can see in the store?
Yes, yes. Like I said, you know, we restrict certain windows where there cannot be, you know, POP we call it, or signage, you know, just to make sure that we're keeping the employees visible and, you know, we're maintaining, you know, that fishbowl effect I mentioned.
And are the employees trained to keep a minimal amount of cash?
Yes, that's part of their computer-based training that every employee must go through. We'll also do overnight checks where we'll send in, if you want to call it, you know, secret shoppers or, you know, operation team members to make sure that our late night workers, as well as all workers, you know, on every shift, are familiar with our loss prevention techniques, you know, best practices, and one of the things they do is they also spot check the cash to make sure the cash levels are where they need to be.
And you talk about cameras. You have more than one camera, do you not?
Yes, absolutely.
Are they trained on the front door or the cash register, or where are they?
The cameras cover every part of the property.
And what about loitering? Do you have any?
Except the bathroom.
I'm sorry.
Except the
Except the
restroom.
bathroom.
Except the restroom, yes.
Anti-loitering policy?
Absolutely. You know, we can place anti-loitering signs. It's part of the computer-based training I referenced before on how we handle loiterers, and you know, that's something we take very seriously and we address whenever we need to.
And you do not allow loitering, am I correct?
No, we don't.
And that is supervised, and that's carefully taken care of?
Absolutely, yes.
And what about your concern about litter?
So we have job assignments in place for all shifts for the sales associates to address the litter. You know, part of the responsibility of a sales associate is, like I said, the job assignments they have to check off on, they have to initial, and addressing the trash in the outside area is all part of that.
And a neighbor just asked a question before, worried about, I think, noise coming from this location. What is your experience with regard to noise and how it is controlled?
Well, that's part of our process with deliveries that we were talking about, is we look to minimize deliveries. We actually have what's called a CDC, a central distribution center, where we consolidate our deliveries so it's coming on one truck to reduce the number of deliveries that we need. So just for example, instead of having a bread truck and a milk truck and a Twinkie truck, we put it all on one truck, you know, to reduce those number of deliveries and minimize noise.
And with regard to noise emanating from the inside of the store, that's unlikely, is it not?
Yes, it's unlikely.
And you heard Jazz Linder discuss the signage. Is there anything you want to add to that discussion of this proposed signage?
Just that, we also will, support local communities. If, that we have a community bulletin board, if there's signs that want to go up or something of that sort. But, as you said before, signage is something that we look to do right and make sure that it's not overdone. I've seen some locations, other businesses, coming from operations where it just kind of looks like, really bad wallpaper and covering the whole store and you can't see inside, but we look to do that right.
I have no further questions in this witness.
I have one question. Are any of your stores not open 24 hours a day?
We have some locations that do not operate 24 hours per day in townships, cities, municipalities, where they have an ordinance that restricts hours on the books.
So what are your peak hours?
Peak hours are 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6, generally 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
in the morning.
Yeah.
And you feel like there's a 2 to 3 minute turnover at that time?
Yeah, on average, customers are, in 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes.
So because that's a school district and that's a pretty busy school crossing, isn't that going to be a problem there? I mean, maybe not for you, but for us.
Especially in the morning.
I'm sorry.
Well, you told me 7 to 9,
And 4 to 6.
that's when the kids are coming in and out of school. And that's why I asked, don't you think there'll be, maybe I should ask.
I think the traffic expert is better able to answer that question, if that's okay. He is the next witness.
But just, you said are there any stores open not open 24 hours in Essex County? In Essex County?
Essex County, honestly, I wouldn't want to guess or name specifics that I don't know or give you a yes or no on that. I just know that we do, I am aware that we do have some stores that don't operate 24 hours in municipalities, townships, cities that restrict it on the books.
Frank, do we give anybody permission to open 24 hours?
No, not tonight.
Okay.
I didn't hear that question.
I
Mayor,
just
I'm
asked if
sorry.
we gave any other business in town to open 24 hours a day.
So Frank's saying there are no other businesses open 24 hours in
That's
town?
what Frank is saying. I'm finished.
You stated that someone would be supervising when someone loiters. Who would contact or who would notify these loiterers that they would have to move, according to your policy?
So part of our training, for our sales associates is generally, we start with politely asking them to leave, to be candid with you, and that's the starting point. And there's ways to do that with being stern, but being polite and kind, and that's taught to the sales associates. But when that's not working, if the situation escalates, it could be a call to the police ultimately.
Because I don't know if you're aware, there's a bar there, there's some activity there that's not as desirable, so I'm thinking that if you have a sales associate go out there with a few guys standing on the corner making noise all night long, that's going to be a little bit of
I'm sorry.
a problem.
Arlene, I don't understand that question. I'm sorry, Patty, I don't understand that
What is
question.
his policy as far as someone loitering on the property? Because he stated it was supervised.
Yeah, they
So I'm
certainly
saying,
don't.
okay, how do you do that, and what is your policy to dispute people, which he answered?
Yeah, okay, I'm
My
sorry.
concern is that now you have someone from the bar being a little more rowdy, and if one of the clerks came out and said, move, it might be a little more belligerent, it might be a little more of a problem, but he said he could then call the police. So I'm just looking at the area, things that can happen, and what goes on in the parking lot. And I also have the same concern as the mayor as far as the children during your peak hours.
Yeah, I didn't mean to brush that question off by any means. I just didn't understand what was being asked of me, and to be candid with you, what the exact question was on that.
That's the only thing I know about your security at this time.
Yeah. You defined peak hours as 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. And you said deliveries will be made during off-peak hours. Can you be more specific? Or you're saying deliveries can be the other 20 hours in the day?
Well, we control it. I'll tell you generally, off-peak hours. So the majority of our deliveries are going to be after 8 p.m., at night, 8 to 12 generally, for the tractor trailer delivery, which comes once or twice, tops per week. But we do have that flexibility, that large window, as you pointed out, to, what our window is to make deliveries, and we do control it.
I go to a 7-Eleven most mornings, and I see delivery trucks there at 5:30, 6 a.m. Is that a normal time for a delivery truck?
Sure, yes, I'm sorry. Off-peak would include, in the morning time, prior to 6 o'clock in the morning.
No other board members have questions for this witness. I open up to the public. Anybody in the public have questions for this witness?
I couldn't hear everything, so you may have answered this. Cash in the registers gets to a certain point, and then they will take money out and put it in the safe?
Correct. Yes.
Now, the money from the safe, does that get picked up by armored car, or the manager takes it with him when he leaves?
We have armored car service in some areas. That's something that we're developing more and more of. But we do still have some sites where the store manager is responsible for that safe. But we do have time safes that restrict the availability to open it and the window fill, all of that.
Your surveillance cameras, are they HD? Do you know?
I believe they are, yes.
And do you know how long the recordings will be kept for?
I believe it's 6 months.
Okay. And if this gets passed, I don't know when it will come to fruition, but winter's coming. Snow, would it be removed or plowed? Because you don't have a lot of leeway where to put it.
Yeah. Depending on the amounts, it's mostly going to be removed, but if we got into a situation where, it's mostly going to be plowed, but if we got into a scenario where we need to arrange removal, we would address that.
That's it, thank you.
Mr. DeGarcio?
Yes. The reason I'm coming up is for the last case came to tell me. How many cameras is there going to be?
So we will probably put up 6 to 8 cameras. We'd be willing to work with everybody on that.
Can you tell us where you would be putting them? Would any be in the parking lot?
Yes.
Would the whole parking lot be covered?
Yes.
Jared?
Mark, you ask me something?
You talking about security cameras?
Yes.
Do we want to make that known to the public?
That's a very big thing, especially if they're high definition digital, you can zoom in on the license plates and everything. That's why I'm bringing this up.
But there's some question that's striking us that may we're-
It should be kept,
For example, I
security
don't think I
reasons.
would have given an answer as to how your cash is being removed and put it on the record. I know you're trying to be helpful, and I wanted to cut that off, but it didn't happen. But I think we have to be somewhat sensitive to real specifics on this and rely on our experts.
Sure, I appreciate that, and just to the point about the cash controls, I gave you a couple different examples of how we do things, but I will tell you that we do switch up things, and that's part of our training, is to make sure there's not a pattern, you know, with how we go about that. But I did want to address it. I appreciate that.
Mr. Frantantoni?
In regard to the comment you made about the snow being plowed, is it going to be plowed into the street?
No, generally, you know, we'll usually find a dead spot in the lot and plow. We're not going to put it back into a street where, you know, the street's being plowed and, you know, plowed into the public area. No.
But then it's a very busy intersection, so you guarantee it will not be plowed into the street.
Yes.
Anybody else in the public have questions of this witness? If not, we'll move on.
Can I have, before I put the traffic expert on, can I have 5 minutes recess to discuss something one time?
We should probably give our court reporter a little break too.
I'd like to call my next witness, who was on previously and qualified as both the site engineer and traffic engineer, Mr. Burton. Mr. Burton, you recall that you've been sworn in.
Yes, sir.
Would you please describe the site from a traffic and parking standpoint?
Well, we went through this a little bit before. We're at the intersection of 2 county roads, and there's a signalized intersection.
Would you review the roadways adjacent to the site?
Yeah, again, they're both county roads. If you want the names, Union Avenue is County Route 647, and Belleville Avenue is 506. Each road is 2 lanes, and there's one approach lane from to the traffic light. Sometimes they widen up to several approach lanes, but there's one approach lane on each street that are at the site.
And is this a signalized intersection?
Yes, it's a signalized intersection. There's a 90-second background cycle. And what happens here, because Union Avenue is disjointed, or dogleg, we call it, there's a separate cycle for the southbound and then a separate cycle for the northbound. What I mean is that there'll be green time only for southbound Union Avenue, then there's green time only for northbound Union Avenue. Then the third cycle is green time for east-west, I said Belleville Avenue, I'm sorry. Northbound Union Avenue and southbound Union Avenue, I think you probably, sorry. And then there's another cycle for the east-west Belleville Avenue. So there's 3 cycles, and that is what actually causes a little bit more backup with the traffic, but actually helps access for this site, and I'll get into that a little bit.
And would you review the traffic activity at this location?
Yes, after school was open, we had to wait till school was open, so in mid-September, September 19th and 20th, we did traffic counts at this site. And the peak traffic times for, commuting traffic is 6 to 8 in the morning, and then 4 to 6 in the evening. So we found that the morning peak hour was 7:30 to 8:30, and then the peak evening traffic hour was 5 to 6. Now that's 1 hour, so there may have been, I think in this case there were 60 cars more in the 5 to 6 period than there was the 5:45 to 6:40, the 4:45 to 5:45. We count the 15-minute increments and we find out which is the peak. That's how come it's not always 5 to 6 and 7 to 8. It could be different. And we also did a Saturday noon time count, and usually noon is the peak hour, and it was. So that was on September 19th, 20th, and 23rd. We counted traffic at the site. Now, The traffic impact study was submitted. I'm going to use general numbers so we don't get cluttered here. Figure 3 in the report, if you have it, gives the traffic activity. And I just want to mention this. It's on Belleville Avenue, east-west, is about the same in the morning peak hour and the evening peak hour. 450 cars. I'm just going to round it off in each direction. On Saturday, it's about 300 cars, or 350 in each direction. That's in 1 hour.
And that's the peak hours.
Those are the peak hours on the morning, evening, and on a Saturday. Now, we do one day, and that gives us a picture of what's going on. If we were doing a much bigger project, we'd probably count more days just to get a better, what's the scientific word? Sampling, there you go, thank you. But we don't have to because this is a small generator. I mean, it's only a 2,500 square foot building. So we want an idea of what the traffic is like. So now, on Union Avenue, heading southbound, actually, the morning peak hour, the evening peak hour, and Saturday peak hour, it's about 250 cars heading southbound, past the site. And it's 280 to 300 cars heading northbound. So a few more cars head northbound than head southbound. And as I mentioned, on Belleville Avenue, it's about the same in each direction, 450, 470 cars during the peak hours. Now and we knew it was going to be asked because the school's up the street. We also counted pedestrians. And between 8:05 and 8:35, I guess school probably starts at 8:40, we counted 70 children walking past the site. And we also noted, and I went out there and spoke to, I don't do the counts, we have staff that does the counts, actually guys at PE who does the counts. There's crossing guards. Time I was there were 3 crossing guards. I guess there's 2 to 4 crossing guards, 1 at each corner because this is such a big intersection. But the crossing guard stays right here at this intersection. Now, the proposed development is a convenience store. And we have a lot of data on convenience stores. We refer to the Institute of Transportation Engineers as a trip generation manual. And we've done our own counts at convenience stores, at gas stations, at different things. And we find that it's all consistent because the data in this manual comes from people like us who do counts and send it into the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And every couple of years they publish a new edition of this manual. So the peak hour in the morning, you'll have somewhere around 80, I think, I don't know if you said 60 to 80 customers or 60 to 90 customers. We're anticipating about 85 customers in the morning, the drive-in. If we were downtown city area, we'd have a lot more walk-in traffic, or if we were at a train station, we'd have a lot more walk-in, but we're assuming mostly vehicular traffic for the adults. In the evening, there's less. There's about 60 customers because the morning's the heavier time for a convenience store. But on a Saturday, there could be in the 90 customer range on Saturday, in the 1 hour. And that's around noontime. One of the things about the convenience store traffic, like bank traffic and like gas stations, or more like gas stations, is that they're convenience. It's what we call pass-by traffic. Now, the number we use, because that's the number that's published, is 60% pass-by. But and that's an old number, I think it's from the 80s. I think with that there's more convenience stores and more alternate places, say to get your morning coffee, the pass-by percentage is greater. If you're heading east on Belleville Avenue, you're not going to stop at this 7-Eleven to get your coffee because about a mile west of here is a Dunkin' Donuts on the other side of the road. That's convenient. You'll make the right turn, go into Dunkin' Donuts, come out, and pass by here. But we took into our traffic count that some people who really love 7-Eleven coffee will want to make a left either in Belleville Avenue or make the left on Union, onto Union and enter the site. That could happen. And we've taken that into our counts, but most of the traffic is already on the street, and it's a convenience store, and they go because it's convenient. If it wasn't convenient, they wouldn't go there. So we've distributed the traffic, and I'll just give you some of those numbers. For example, in the morning, just like leaving the Union Avenue driveway, and it's in our report, where we anticipate 15 cars making a right turn and 11 cars making a left. I think there's going to be a lot more cars making a right than making a left, but we kept it that way. And on Belleville Avenue, leaving the site, that's what we anticipate, more traffic on Belleville Avenue because that's where more traffic is on the street. We have 22 cars making a left and 38 cars making a right. And I'll get into why I gave you those numbers a little later on. So that would be the traffic activity. Now, looking at the site from parking, I think you want to go back.
That's fine. The parking is fine. Go
Okay,
forward with
parking.
that. There was a question by Mr. Walsh with regard to whether or not we met the required number of spaces.
Yes, the parking is 1 space per 400 square feet. We have 2,565 square feet. I think that's what it was. We require 7 parking spaces. We have 10 as proposed. Now, the Institute of Transportation Engineer also has a parking generation manual, same as the traffic generation manual, where people have put in studies. And statistics for a convenience store like this would say 8 parking spaces. So the published literature says 8, the borough ordinance says 7, we have 10, and we've done enough studies to know that this can handle it. Now, it was testified that the average stay is a couple of minutes. So if you're not there for 20 minutes in the parking space, you're there for only a few minutes, so there can be quite a bit of turnover on the parking space. So we're not really worried about parking. We can accommodate that. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the circulation. We had a slightly wider driveway on Union Avenue, and it was a little bit closer to the intersection. Both driveways are 50 feet from the intersection, which is like the point where the curve makes. And we've reduced the Belleville Avenue driveway to 40 feet. Union Avenue is 40 feet, the Belleville Avenue is 30 feet. The way we anticipate truck traffic coming is coming on Belleville Avenue, heading west, pulling into the site, driving across the site, and heading north on Union Avenue. That's really, and that's one of the reasons why we designed the site this way. Like we have to get the delivery truck in. Like when you design a gas station, if you can't get the fuel delivery truck in to drop the gas, then why have a gas station? So we have the truck coming through. We talked about the garbage truck. The garbage truck we anticipate coming the same way, and generally they're front loaders now because they're easier. The driver, well, they just have to open up the gates, but it's much easier for them to operate. So there's a little over 40 feet in the property for that truck to pull in to the dumpster, back up, and then leave. I'll just go over the delivery times again, because it was discussed that we have a tractor trailer truck a week, maybe 2, right? And then there'd be a straight truck, which would be 1 to 2 a day, actually, is what we found with the 7-Eleven. And then garbage, we'd have once a week. But more important than garbage is recycling, because that's what they generate. There's a lot of cardboard. Because one of the dumpsters in the trash enclosure is for recycling, and they would come once a week as well. You'd also have the newspaper. That's a van that pulls up, drops them in. And all these deliveries are pretty quick. The tractor trailer that's the one that could go up to a half hour, 45 minutes otherwise. And that tractor trailer, again, would park at the bend in the parking lot. So both driveways are still open. Could a car get through? Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. But that's one of the reasons why we had the two driveways. The truck would come and park here. Now, that's the other reason for having the truck deliver at night, 10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, not during the day when there's activity. And that's 7-Eleven's practice, and we strongly recommend it as well. So when we take the traffic that I mentioned before, some of it's pass by, so we get a little credit. So even though we have driveway traffic of, say, 80 customers in the morning, the street, there may only be 30 new cars on the street if we take that 60% pass by. Well, we look at the traffic activity at the intersection, we add our traffic to it, and then we do, and you've heard this term, level of service analysis, where we measure how long it takes for cars to get through. That's really what you're looking for, the average time it takes a car to get through with the cycle, with the traffic signal cycle. And before we do that, we say, okay, it's going to be 2 years before this opens. We increase traffic by 2% a year. We look at that, then we add the store traffic. That's how the traffic studies are done. And there's a couple tables in the manual, in the report that we prepared, that gives the results of that analysis for the street intersection. And we have these letters. A is very good, B is very good, C is what you expect during rush hour, D is a little congested. And also acceptable in this area. This area, most of northeast New Jersey, the whole New York City metro area, D is acceptable. So the level of service remains C in the morning, C in the afternoon, and there's just southbound Union Avenue is currently operating at level of service D. That means there's a longer delay. It's in the 40-second range. So the average car coming down, one car will come down, the light will be green, it'll go right through. Another car will come just as it turns red and have to wait. So that's how they come up with the average. The computer calculates all this stuff. But one of the reasons why there's a long delay is because we have 3 different phases. If Union Avenue were lined up, the cars would travel more because everybody is stopped on Belleville and Union Avenue southbound when Union Avenue northbound is going. So that's why, one of the reasons why we have the long delay. But adding this little bit of traffic for this convenience store doesn't have a noticeable impact on the traffic signal. And there's computer programs and a method to do this, and we've shown that. And then also, now our driveways, the next thing is, can cars get in and out of the site?
So that's a gap study you're going to talk about?
Yeah. We actually went and did what we call a gap study, where someone sits there with a stopwatch, and they wait for no traffic activity in both directions. We were looking at the left turns out. On Union Avenue, you can make a right turn out anytime, except for when the northbound traffic has the green light. There'll be a quick slug of cars that were queued there, then it'll spread out, and then you can make a right turn out. Otherwise, when southbound Union Avenue is going, when east-west Belleville Avenue is going, very few cars make left and right turns. We count that. And so when all times except for northbound Union Avenue, you can almost at will make a right turn out of the site. Left turns, you need a gap. And the same with left turns on Belleville Avenue. So we counted gaps. And it's coming out of a parking lot onto a main road. The gap, you have to have 7.1 seconds gap where there's no traffic to make a left. It's been studied. But if that gap is 10.1 seconds long and there's a car behind you, you can get out as well. So it's 3 seconds as a follow-up. So once there's a gap, so if we had a little over 14 seconds, you can get 3 cars out of it. So we actually counted gaps during the peak hour. And actually what we do is we count a half hour on the one street and a half hour on the other street during the peak hour, because the peak hour is pretty consistent. So on Union Avenue, at the Union Avenue driveway, in a half hour, we had 40 gaps, which were average over 13 seconds long, and the longest, we capped a gap at 18 seconds, even though there were times when there was a 40-second gap, again, because of the way traffic moves. There's no traffic going up or down. It's, Belleville Avenue is going, there's no traffic, very little traffic on Union Avenue passing the site, so you can make a turn. We capped the gap at 18 seconds because we're not going to have that many cars on the site queued up to back out, because we don't have a 200-foot long driveway where we can have 5 or 10 cars backed up, so it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, we have well over 100 opportunities to turn left out on Union Avenue and turn left out on Belleville. But now there's a caveat to that, because I want to be completely open about it. When the traffic light turns red on Belleville Avenue for east-west traffic, the queue starts, and it backs up quite a bit past the site. So a left turning, but when, okay, so then there's really little eastbound traffic, because again, most of the traffic is heading north and south. So you have two cycles, 30 seconds, 20 some odd seconds each, where there's not much traffic heading eastbound. So if a car's ready to turn left out of the site on Belleville Avenue, you're hoping that generally what happens is someone will stop and give you what they call a courtesy gap and let you pull out. Because they're stopped, they're not going anywhere. They have nothing to lose by letting you out. And that's what will generally happen in these areas at these type of intersections. As you're traveling, someone stops and lets you out. And again, you can keep on coming out, because there's no one for 40 seconds. There's very little traffic heading east on Belleville Avenue. On Union Avenue, we'll have a queue. When school lets out and everyone picks up their kids, the queue is pretty long. Other than that, the queue will clear, because it's southbound only. The 4 or 5 cars that are there will clear, and now someone who wants to turn left out of the site has the opportunity, because now cars are approaching randomly, and there's opportunities, and that's where we found gaps to turn in. So cars can get in and out of here. We think safely, because again, we've opened up the whole intersection so you can see what's going on. We've gone before Essex County to go through the site, because sometimes they want to put restrictions. They haven't made official, but we've talked about this. We didn't give them all these statistics yet, but they didn't see a need to put left turn prohibitions on the site. But they have the final say. It's their road. If they want to make the restrictions, we'll have to live by it. But I don't see that will be the case. Now, the children. You're going to ask me about the children. You're going to ask me about the children. You're going to ask me about the children. So what did I say? 70 kids? 70. And then in the evening, but they're letting out at 2:30 or something like that. So it's not the street rush hour. There's less traffic on the street. But in the morning. So we have children coming from the north and coming from the east and walking up this sidewalk. And the school's on the other side, so anyway, kids coming from the west will stay on the west side of the Union Avenue. And there's a crossing guard here, as I mentioned before. But because the traffic, because of the traffic light and queues building up on the traffic, our cars aren't just whizzing in and out at will. They have to really wait for these opportunities I mentioned before in the traffic stream to develop so they can pull out. So if I said we had 80 customers in the morning, that's a customer, that's 1.5 customers a minute. That would be 90 customers. Okay, 1.25 customers. So every 40 seconds someone's coming in, and every 40 seconds someone's coming out. Say something along those lines. But it's not that way. Well, even 40 seconds is a long time. If I stop talking for 40 seconds,
You think you're finished?
Okay, that's less than 5 seconds. So 40 seconds is a long time. But again, it's not constant. And again, we have the crossing guard here, and it's clear, wide open, so people can see what's going on. So I mean, I know that there's children there, that's why we counted it. We'll have nice, well, we'll fix the sidewalks, but everyone can see everybody as they're walking by. And the children also come in clusters too, so there'll be 10 kids or 5 kids at a time walking by.
Mr. Burton, the mayor obviously had a concern about children walking by. If your client was willing to provide a security crossing type guard at the time when children would be going by there, whatever that time might be for 1 hour, the key time,
Yeah, it's about a half hour in the morning.
would that pretty much alleviate, or you can never eliminate risk, but would that not even more reduce the risk of any problem if there was a crossing guard type person employed by the 7-Eleven for the peak hour when kids would be going by? It wouldn't even be an hour, but the peak time when children would be going by.
Well, absolutely, because the crossing guard that's at the corner is worried about the street, not about our driveways. But yeah, sure, if you had a...
So we have a crossing guard type individual on our property worried about the children.
Sure, that would be great.
Optimum safety, would you think?
Yes, yes. I don't think it's needed, of course, but it
obviously-
surely wouldn't hurt. It would be a benefit, absolutely.
And that, if that were done, obviously the morning is the prime time, but if that were done both, whenever you turn out, whatever that hour is, that is the prime time the children would be passing.
Yeah, it's the half hour in the morning, and maybe it's a little longer in the evening.
An hour in the evening.
Yeah, because they,
Spread out a little.
afternoon, yeah, leaving is...
And would you feel that would be as good a safety blanket as you could have?
Absolutely.
All right, then would you review your conclusions with regard to this application?
Yes, in traffic engineering terms, we say, I don't think, in my opinion, the site will not have a significant detrimental impact. Because I can't say it won't have any impact, because it's going to have an impact. If nothing's there, there's no traffic. If there's something there, there is traffic. So there'll be an impact, but it's not going to be significant, that significant detrimental impact. Now, I come this a couple of ways. First, I mentioned it's pass-by traffic. It's automobile traffic. We do have deliveries, but then every commercial property has deliveries. So from a traffic standpoint, the type of traffic that goes to the site, it's compatible with the traffic in the street. There's some trucks on the street. There's usually 5% trucks and buses. We're going to have less than that at this site. So we're compatible with the area, and we actually serve the traffic that passes by. We have 2 driveways. I didn't mention, but, well, I did say the site is open, but there's clear unobstructed view, east and west on the Belleville Avenue driveway, north and south on the Union Avenue driveway. They can see who's coming and who's going. Cars can, people leaving the site can see traffic on the street, and traffic on the street can see people maneuvering. So, should someone make a mistake, there's enough time to put the brakes on. So that's adequate visibility. I mentioned about the gaps in the traffic. Because of the nature of the traffic, how it flows, there are sufficient gaps, more than enough gaps, for our cars, our customers to make lefts in and out of the site. Okay. Removing the building on the corner helps open the site. I think, well, the photograph had it, the site on the northwest corner of Belleville and Union is pushed way back, has a clear open parking lot. Some urban planners want the building on the street. That's good, but I think at the intersection it pays to have it back so you can see the site. I discussed level of service, the operation of traffic light. You don't even notice. You won't notice the traffic that's associated with this. Okay. And more importantly, as far as the deliveries go, they're off-peak hours. It's 7-Eleven's standard operating procedure, and that's when they should be, is off-peak hours, so they have less disruption on the street traffic and less disruption on the central.
I have no further questions.
I have a question. The last 2 cars that are parked closest to the apartment building,
Yes.
how would they exit? Does that last parking spot have enough room does he have to back out the driveway?
No. That person will have to back out and then drive out.
There's a 24-foot backup, is there not?
Yeah, there's a 24-foot backup aisle, and if the car backs straight up, or even if we move the curb in, that car could back up and then head out to Belleville Avenue. If they were going out to Union Avenue, they'd have to back up on the site, past the driveway and then drive out. So it depends on which way they're going.
That's tough having a car back up, especially in the morning with the kids there. I know you're having a crossing guard, but that last spot to me is tough.
That's a good point. We have a couple more spaces than needed. Maybe it's something that's coned off over certain times, but it's a good point. I didn't think about it.
I mean, if you got 3 employees with 10 parking spots, it's-
2 employees.
and a manager. 2 employees and a manager.
2 and 1 makes 3.
There will be a manager.
2 employees, 10 parking spots.
So, yeah, generally, we have 2 employees on per shift. I'll tell you, a lot of our employees do get dropped off, you know, they get rides and everything, you know, it's just,
But what's the total number of employees in the facility? 2 or 3?
at max, it's 3 with the manager.
Okay.
And the manager is not at the facility during all times of the day.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, no, that's what he said, 2 employees and most of the time a manager.
You know, sometimes we'll have floating managers, you know.
But as we mentioned, that a lot of the employees, and this is what we found when we've done studies, do get dropped off. This is sort of like a minimum wage job, or maybe it's a little better than minimum wage, you know, so they're not driving.
Minimum wage is going up with our new governor, so.
Yeah. Better
Yeah, but
streets,
that last
taxes
spot-
going up too, probably.
That last spot concerns me, and I don't know any way to
No,
improve it.
and that's a very good point. We'll look at it.
If you got enough parking spaces, you're already.
We're over parking by 3 spaces, so giving up 1 space and maybe putting some
Yeah, I
greenery
hate to
there
go
is
away with
not.
parking, but I just think it would be safer than having somebody backing out during.
We could make,
Very good.
we could make that an employee parking
There you
spot.
go.
There you go, even better.
Perfect.
Didn't think of that.
You know if there's a site easement on the corner of that lot? Like a...
Site distance easement?
Yeah.
No, there aren't any easements. I know Middlesex County would require it. I don't know that Essex County
Okay.
would
No,
require.
I'm just
saying,
curious, 'cause then you wouldn't be able to move the building forward anyway.
right.
Right.
But the thing is, because it's a traffic light, you don't need the site triangle easement. If it was a stop sign, you'd actually need it. But Essex, Bergen, Passaic, they don't really do that.
And I think pulling out of Belleville Avenue and making a left turn is going to be a problem. I can't see people in our town saying, stop and say, oh, go ahead. You know, they'll just cram into the guy's bumper in front of them and not let anybody out.
There's not really our residents most of the time on that Belleville Avenue. That's a pass-through area headed west.
Are you saying
North
Belleville
Avenue.
Avenue people or Belleville people are as nice as people in the
Oh,
surrounding
they're
towns?
nicer. They would let you out.
But like rush hour, people just,
Yes.
I
that
don't think they do it on purpose, it's just that a confined space like that, with so much traffic, you don't realize you're pulling up and blocking the driveway too. I mean,
Sometimes that
I don't think
happens.
people do it on purpose, it's just you're not really paying attention to.
Yeah, I
That would be
noticed-
more about people making a left in than a left out, I think, because when they're making a left out, you see them. It happened to me, as a matter of fact, last night. I'm driving in, the traffic light turned red, and I was parked right in front of the municipal lot in a town, and the car wanted to turn left. I couldn't go anyplace, so he couldn't turn, he
Now, is
couldn't
it
come in.
correct, you said it would be up to the county?
Yeah, the county, yeah, I mean, it's their roads, they would.
The left turn thing?
I think actually it's easier to make a left turn out than a left turn in. But once because the traffic on Belleville Avenue is pretty constant, it's constant.
you say the county would have the final decision. If we
Oh,
could make
absolutely.
it a left-
You could still,
You can make it a condition, no left turn.
Well,
see what the county
but,
says.
yeah, see what the county says, but before I make a condition, I would let the, you can believe me or not, but let the police review it after such a period of time. That's what often, if you're concerned about it, rather than make it now. Because, again, right now, what is it, 9:30? 9:30? There's no problem making a left in or out of the site.
I just have a quick comment, Mr. Chairman. I don't give compliments too much, but you were very thorough and you covered absolutely every single question I had. So I thank you for that.
Okay, well, thank you. If I don't, you're going to be all over me, so I
Well, I did have someone come before the board last month that gave us a 2-year-old report. So
you know,
I love your report.
there's two motivating factors, reward and fear. I hate to screw up. So that's.
You did your job very well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harris, what's your feeling with the left turns? I don't know, do you think that's the right thing, or?
Well, yeah, I've seen other boards do is I think even this board do that. If there's a problem, you call the applicant back in, and then you can in the future.
Because I know the Dunkin' Donuts on, was it Franklin and Geralman, we were supposed to have no left turns, and there were supposed to be signs, and they knocked the signs down, and
It seems to work around. Is there any actions up there?
Mr. Chairman, I just would suggest maybe first the county's got to give an approval. Assuming they do give an approval and don't require that restriction, as Mr. Harrod said, you could set a time period during which you have a trial period when we would have to be back here to reconsider if the police or someone within the community has determined that it's unsafe. Whether that may be 8 months, 9 months, whatever you think is reasonable time, 6 months, a year, whatever you think is the time in order to allow an evaluation, should this be approved.
We'll open it up to the public. Mr. Dougherty, you got a question?
I have a question, but it's really in the form of making it simple. Just eliminate the curb cut on Belleville Avenue. That's it. And then there's no problem. You can't have a problem. It's impossible.
They need the trailer to get it.
The garbage truck to get in.
Yeah. Well, garbage truck can't come from the other side and back over?
Well, we got to go through. And then, anyway, you have a lot of, most of the customers will be heading west on Belleville Avenue, turning.
Well, if they want to get something, they have to make a right. I can tell you exactly a location where you have a similar type of situation. There's 2 or 3 stores, not just one. And that's in Harrison, on the corner of Harrison Avenue and Passaic Avenue. Right there, there's a Popeye's Chicken and something else, and they can only go in from the one side, from Passaic Avenue. You can't go in or go out from Harrison, because it's a heavy road. Now, you don't live here, so I'm going to tell you something. Except for one-way coming, things get backed up 2 blocks.
We swear you in if there's going to be a comment.
Oh, okay, you can swear me in. You want to do it now, or you want to do it later?
Why don't we bring you back for
Okay.
your statement?
No problem, no problem.
By the way, we designed a new building that's going up at that intersection, so we're familiar with that intersection.
Mr. LaFleur?
Excuse me, the Belleville Avenue curb cut is how far from the corner?
50 feet.
50?
Yes.
And do you know how far it is from the stop line?
Oh, the stop bar? Yeah, we have a scale. Yeah. I'll measure that. From the stop bar, 28 feet, so it'd be 1 car and a bumper.
Anybody else in the public have a question of this witness?
In regard to the growth, traffic growth, you mentioned 2% a year.
Yes.
Where did you get that figure?
The New Jersey Department of Transportation. has various growth factors for different parts of the state, and we use their data.
I have contacted the state in regards to that report. That 2%, is it for Belleville?
No, it doesn't pick the town, it just picks an area.
Right, and I contacted the state, and I got the report, and I spoke some. It's 2% growth rate for Essex County. But then the gentleman I spoke to said, but that doesn't mean, and he gave me specific examples. For example, Essex Fells and the place up there are not going to grow. So you can't say 2% for every town in Belleville. With all that's going on in, are you aware of all the development in Bloomfield?
Yeah.
Right off Belleville Inn and all that? So that 2% can't be guaranteed for our areas.
Right, but there are times, actually, after 2008, traffic volumes dropped, and it fluctuates, because we've done studies on various roads and come back, and sometimes it's more, and sometimes it doesn't grow. Anyway.
Well, traffic.
But anyway,
Where did traffic volumes drop?
Well, then, when everyone was out of work in 2008, the traffic volumes
Are you
dropped.
talking across the country?
Well, no.
Or Belleville? We're talking Belleville now. This is the Belleville part.
I'm talking this part of New Jersey. But anyway, I understand what you're saying, but the point is, we did something to anticipate growth. Whether it's 2% or 2.3% or 1.4%, we increased the growth in the traffic to do it. So it's not going to have that much of an impact on our analysis. I mean, I understand, but the thing is, we took into account a growth in the area.
But I did want the record to show, did you just say that, are you saying this drop in traffic is also Belleville?
It depends on the circumstances, it depends on what happens. I'm saying, in general, in 2008, when the economy crashed, traffic dropped on all the streets throughout this area.
In general?
In general.
Okay.
One more.
I have one more with
Is there a planner coming up?
I have a planner. Okay to proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Lyden.
Go ahead.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your name for the record.
Sure, my name is Steve Lyden, L-Y-D-O-N.
Thank you.
Your business address, Mr. Lyden?
It's 25 Westwood Avenue in Westwood.
Your occupation?
I'm a professional planner.
And give us your background with regard to education.
I graduated from Rutgers a long time ago. I have a professional planner's license, which I've held in good standing since the late 80s, and here I am.
Just briefly give the board the benefit of some of your experience in the field of planning.
Sure, the first part of my career I was on the public side with a county and then a couple municipalities. And 16 years ago I joined Burgess Associates as a senior planner. And what that means is I get to go overnight meetings.
And you've testified a number of times before planning boards and zoning boards.
And Superior Court and Municipal Court, yes.
And you've been accepted as an expert in the field of planning on each and every occasion.
That's correct.
We'll accept your witness as an expert planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From a planning standpoint, would you describe the property?
Sure, and the first way I'm going to do it, you've heard a lot from Callisto. I look at uses. In the RITA'S, which is on the site, it's now closed. Even though it was seasonal, I consider that to be permitted use. The two-family dwelling in this particular zone is not. So you have a mix of uses on the property, one of them conforming, one of them non-conforming. As this board well knows, the goal is to create conforming conditions when you can. So right now, to me, it sort of sets out as an anomaly and something that the ordinance and the master plan would like to see almost corrected, if that's the right word. It's a larger site than the ordinance requires. It's 10,300 square feet thereabouts, where your ordinance only requires a 5,000 square foot lot. But one key issue is the ordinance requires that a lot be 100 feet deep, but measured along the east-west axis, the property is 90 feet in depth. So it's shallower than your ordinance would allow, and I think there is some significance for that as we go on later. As Mr. Burton testified to, a lot of the property is either building or paved. There's very little in the way of greening area on the site, and certainly the intersection of two county roads presents some constraints, some problems, and some opportunities. And I think this particular design maximizes the opportunities while minimizing the constraints and the problems. It's also an interesting area. I've got out of the car and walked around. The surrounding land uses are quite varied. They include retail, fraternal club, funeral services on Union Avenue, south of the intersection, an ice cream store, gas station, off-street parking lot, a chocolate store. You don't see too many chocolate stores anymore. And some garden apartments. And then there are one or two single-family homes along Union Street or Union Avenue going north. You've heard what the proposed development is. What I want to focus on in proposed development is it will convert the use from a mixed-use development, one of which is a non-conforming use, to a conforming use. And so therefore, this development achieves a greater degree, I think my mouth froze, of consistency and compatibility with your planning documents. And I think for that, this application sort of has a leg up from the get-go. The other thing I noticed right away is that the building is relatively small, and what that does is allows the applicant to provide additional parking. Now, I'm not one for a lot of excess and unnecessary pavement, but two county roads, having an extra parking space or two, especially when those county roads are busy, is favorable to an overall site development. One, we talked about snowplow. It gives you some place to place snow if it gets a little deeper. What it also does is there's a lack of on-street parking in this particular environment. Having an extra stall or two, even beyond what we think we might need, is very helpful in case the rare situation where someone pulls in and they come back out of the store 3 minutes later and they have a flat tire. And so instead of being there 3 minutes, maybe the car's there a little bit longer while the tow truck comes. So having the extra parking stalls, in my mind, is a great advantage. And later on, we have to talk about whether or not a variance is a C1 or C2. I think the impervious coverage variance that we're seeking is actually can be, in this situation, at this location for this proposed use, is a C2 type variance. I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself. The other thing I noticed was that all the proposed parking spaces conform to your ordinance requirement, even though your ordinance requirement is a little larger by a foot in length than typical 9 by 18. So I think what that also does is provide a little bit of extra elbow room, because the stalls are really larger than the industry standard and much larger than typical cars. So that makes the circulation on site a little bit easier, a little bit of elbow room to move around, and God bless you. It also helps when there may be an oversized vehicle in there, like a delivery truck. I probably haven't mentioned it, but I showed the property is in the BA zone, and permitted uses in that zone include retail, service commercial, theaters, businesses, professional offices, and things of that similar nature. So the proposed use as a convenience store fits within the BA zone. And also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the zone requires a 5,000 square foot lot, and the applicant has about 10,003 or 10,005 square feet, twice the size of what the ordinance requires. And I think on a busy county intersection, that's very helpful as well. I've looked at your master plan, which I understand from tonight's hearing, you're in the process of updating. One of your master plan goals is to provide for the rehabilitation and/or reconstruction of older non-residential areas to maintain existing jobs and produce new jobs. That's a long goal. The plan is right too long. But this is a non-residential area, and the readers on the property is a smaller, older building, which has probably exceeded its life expectancy. So I think this goal of replacing that older, smaller building I think the testimony was 850 square feet for a commercial building, that's very small. Meets that master plan goal. Another goal of your 2000 master plan is to encourage commercial areas to serve Belleville residents. And I think a convenience store catchment area is relatively small in area, and I think this retail store with an emphasis on convenience achieves that goal as well. So the proposed development achieves both master plan goals. I'm sorry?
Review the variances being sought.
Yeah, we have a relatively few number of variances, which is not surprising since it's a small building and an oversized lot. The first one, which is of significance, is the lot depth. We're supposed to have 100 feet according to your ordinance, yet there's only 90 on the lot. That's an existing condition. We really can't do much about that, but it is something that we have to address, and I think we do. Another one is that rear yard setback. The ordinance requires 15 feet. We have a proposal on the narrower side of 1.9 feet. Parking setback, and that's along the north property line, is supposed to be 5 feet. We're proposing 2.5 feet. The freestanding sign setback, and with all, let me take a small step aside. When you're redoing your ordinance, you may want to look at this requirement. As I understand your ordinance, it requires freestanding signs to be set back 18 feet. Let me suggest that sort of defeats the purpose of having a freestanding sign. So we're proposing at 1 feet. That's to provide for efficient and comprehensive circulation with the aisle width that you want and the 9 by 19 parking space, stall space. And then the last thing, your building size signs. Along Union Avenue, the signs are rather smaller than your ordinance allows, which is good. On the Belleville Avenue side, we're allowed just a percentage of what's allowed on Union Avenue, which would be 42.9, rounded up to 43 square feet, and we're proposing 70 feet. So those are the variances we're seeking.
You got into it already, but would you review the statutory criteria as it applies to this application?
Sure. The traditional one, the C1, and I'm trying to talk fast because it's getting late, is the...
No, it's cold. You don't have to talk fast.
Well, I don't want to say that again. It's getting late. Is the physical features of the site or the improvement. So if you have a very narrow lot, that might be a basis for a variance. If you have a lot with steep slopes, that might be a variance, basis for a variance. The configuration of a lot, I think it goes beyond just the lot, but because it talks about lawful structures. So in this case, I think the intersection on two county roads is actually a C1 basis for a variance. The existing buildings are coming down, so we're not talking about a variance based on the lawful buildings on the site. The second way, the newer way for getting a variance, is that it results in a better zoning alternative, and that's called the C2 variance. The C2 focus is on how the variance ends up in a better zoning and planning solution, more for the neighborhood than for the site. And that's a key difference. The C1 variance, the emphasis and the focus is on the property in question. On the C2, it's more on the area and how the benefits flow to the neighbors. In any case, we have to prove the negative criteria, and there's two criteria for that, which you've heard before, that there's no substantial impairment to the master plan or the zoning ordinance, and the second one is that there's no substantial, and the word is in both clauses, detriment to surrounding land uses. And I think with the few number of variances and this particular site, I think there is a basis for the board to grant the requested variances. And before I get into the particular details, I want to say, and that should all be reviewed in the sense that we're eliminating a non-conforming use. Actually, I think we're eliminating two non-conforming uses. I don't think your ordinance allows for mixed-use development in this particular zone, so we have that, so that's one non-conforming use. And certainly your ordinance doesn't allow a two-family dwelling. So I think by eliminating that, we're actually eliminating two non-conforming uses from the property, bringing in greater conformance with the zoning ordinance. The rear yard setback along the eastern property line, we're at 1.9 feet, where 15 feet required. I think the board can look at that favorably based on the shallowness of the lot. We're supposed to have more lot depth than we do in application, so that's a C1 variance. I think there's also Another way of looking at it, as far as the negative criteria, is that there's an adjacent building close to the property line. There are no doors or operating window, excuse me, there are no operating doors or windows in that wall of building, so I think there's no negative impact to surrounding properties. The parking setback, I believe, is a C1 variance. It's a function of the corner lot configuration and trying to provide access from both streets. It's also a C2 as there's a need to provide adequate parking for the site. When I say adequate parking, I mean more than what the ordinance requires, but to provide for a snowplow area or a rare delivery vehicle so that we're not using a parking space to put a delivery vehicle in. I believe there's no negative criteria from allowing the parking stalls to be a little bit closer to the northern property line. We're about 2.5 feet short because, as Mr. Burton has testified to, there's a fairly tall fence there, but it's a fence with slats, so you really can't see through it. In addition, there's some trees there. On the other side of the fence, there's a driveway. On the far side of the driveway, there's another fence. Then there's a walkway, and then there's quite some distance before you get to the building, which is shown on the drawing. So I think by encroaching with that last parking stall, which we're now going to make an employee stall, I think there is adequate basis in the statute for granting that variance as a C1. I think the sign variance of being a foot off the property line when there's an 18-foot setback requirement is a function of both the C1 and the C2. Due to the corner lot configuration of two busy county roads, the C1 variance is that there's no other rational location for the sign. And I'll point out that the RITA'S sign is not 18 feet off of the right-of-way along Union Avenue. It's much closer than that because putting it 18 feet back really defeats the purpose of the sign. There's another reason for having that sign closer to the road. The social club, which is next to us, which is a fine neighbor, we have no problem with them, of course, they're right up to the right-of-way. So as you're driving west on Belleville Avenue, that building precludes and limits views into the site, especially if you were to put the sign back. So for the sign to be effective and to allow motorists to safely locate the sign, identify the sign, locate the driveway, and turn in, we need to have that sign where it's proposed, where I don't think it'll create any difficulty. The limits on the sign on the southern wall is a little bit greater than what can be allowed because it's considered a secondary sign, but the building is much further set back than your ordinance anticipates. The ordinance anticipates a 0 setback, and the setback there is much in excess of that. I think Mr. Burton talked about a 40-foot setback. So I think the slightly oversized sign on a wall that's set back much further than your ordinance anticipates is a valid reason for granting a C1 variance. There's no negative criteria impact as the signs are appropriate to the area. There are rooftop billboards across the street facing west on Belleville Avenue. And west of the intersection, there are a couple more billboards. And those billboards are large and on the roof very tall. So I don't think introducing these signs, which are modest in size, creates any negative impact either towards the master plan, the zoning ordinance, or a substantial impact on the neighborhood pattern of development. And yet it does provide an important function as far as wayfinding and locating the site. So for those bases, I think the variances will all be granted.
Despite me not asking many questions and my witness just went on, there's no further questions.
Anybody on the board have questions of this witness? Does anybody in the public have questions? Does anybody in the public have any, do you want a summation first? Public comments. Anybody have a comment in the public?
You go first.
Mr. Frantantoni, you should go first.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Vincent, Frank Antoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue, Belleville. Okay? First of all, I think Mr. Gassion will be happy to know I'm not an objector. I like this plan.
Wow.
Right? The only thing is, I see quite a couple of problems with this. First of all, I don't think we do 24 hours. We're 2 blocks from Newark. 24 hours is going to create problems. I live 2 blocks up from Union Avenue, Mount Prospect, for 50 years. I've been working in Belleville, 2 business for 55 years. I know this intersection very well. As far as the growth, the 2% growth, I don't know where any decline in Belleville was. I used to go out to 45 years, my laundromat on Washington Avenue, go out Belleville Avenue. Can't do it no more, the last 5 years. 3 days a week, my wife goes and babysits in Roseland for the last 4.5 years. Cannot, if you don't get out into Belleville Avenue before 7 o'clock, forget it. She can't get out at all. I can't go off between 7:15 and 7:45, I go down off my laundromat. I have to go down Home Street because you can't get out into Belleville Avenue. It's a disaster. In the last 3 or 4 years, ever since all the development in Bloomfield, Belleville Avenue is a literal parking lot. And not just 7 to 9, it's a little later, and the rush hour starts at 4 o'clock until 7. It's just a parking lot. Nobody's going to let you in. Nobody's going to get out of Belleville Avenue because nobody, first of all, it's not even at their route. Most people are. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. But it's just practical. When you're bumper to bumper in line, traffic is crawling, you're already up to the stop line, all right? So the guy behind you is right up to your bumper, and if you're trying to get out and make a left turn, not only do you have to worry about the cars going westbound, you also got to try to get into the eastbound lane, and they're not going to let you in. You have the other problem with the gas station, or the exit and entering. So, I think it's a bad design. What I would recommend, I think this whole design with this L-shaped parking lot is a problem. I don't see why that building can't be placed on the same footprint as the existing lemonade stand and the 2-story building. Number one, they testified it's only, I think, 20 feet high. The present house, I believe, is close to 30, so we have a lower. The back of the building would be on Belleville Avenue, which with a nice facade would be attractive. And you'd have that big parking lot like you have now. We've never, all these years, and when I lived in Newark, I used to come to Jackie's Lemonades. You never had a problem with that big parking lot on the side with the one entrance on Union Avenue. It would be much better. You can even, if that wasn't acceptable, where the building is now, just move straight down to the Belleville Avenue, and you would have all that big parking lot with the one driveway that has been there for years. We haven't had a problem. With the school kids, it's only got one driveway they contend with. So, for those reasons, I think this is a bad design. I'd like to see it there. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, sir, Mr. 7-Eleven, I think the other one up on Columbus and Belleville Avenue, I think originally in 1979, and I know the date because I was going to buy that property then, I think that was originally a 7-Eleven. And then it went to Shoppers Express, and I don't know what it is now. But that was opened in '79. But this plan with that L-shaped parking lot around it is going to create problems. So I like to see 7-Eleven. I just worked last Friday in West Caldwell. They have a lovely large pizza for $5. I had it for lunch last week. And took 3/4 of it home. You have the fantastic, and the hot dog and the big drink for $2 is another bargain. I'd like to see them though. But this is a bad design. In all due respect to the architect, and as a contractor for 45 years, I think this is a bad design. I want to see 7-Eleven there, but it's got to be better. And in no way should you allow a driveway on Belleville Avenue. That poor, you know, some of our crossing guards are elderly, and they can't keep track of it. That's a bad point for them, to keep track of the kids walking there. So I'd like to see it approved, but I think it needs some major revision because this is not a good site plan. The other thing, if you had the big parking lot like it exists now, there'd be no problem with a trailer going in there. like they do on the Walgreens on Washington Avenue, the older one. A tractor trailer goes in, they back out, but somebody comes in and stops traffic for a minute or so, he backs out and goes out. And it would be much better with the parking lot, one big parking lot instead of L-shaped, which everybody maneuvering, backing up, trying to get out, and the one parking space was problem. You would have no problem, same parking lot we have for years. So please, I hope
Thank you, Mr.
maybe some of the suggestions will help you.
Mr. Gershio.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Are you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you
Yes,
God?
I do.
Please state your name.
Attilio Jerry Del Gershio, 8 Grove Street in Belleville. Now, I agree with Mr. Fran Antoni, it's a very good idea to move the building toward Belleville Avenue, but if they're gonna insist on having a entrance from Belleville Avenue to go onto the property, because I agree, the parking lot in the back is better that way, if you move the building to Belleville Avenue. But if you're gonna have a curb cut on Belleville Avenue, especially because of the kids crossing there, and traffic backs up at least 2 blocks during the rush hour going down. And it backs up 2 blocks going up also. And it backs up about 2 blocks going to the south. The only place where it doesn't back up as bad, but it backs up but not as bad, is coming from the north. And I would say if you're going to insist on having a curb cut on Belleville Avenue, make it entrance only, no exit. It resolves all the problems. You can bring your tractor trailer in if you want that way, if you're insisting, and you can't have a problem with accidents on the corner. Plus, that curb cut is extremely close to there, and that's how I would do it. I would put no exit, only an entrance. All exits have to come out of Union Avenue, and that's the safest way to go. And that's all I have. Any questions? Anybody want to cross-examine Mr. Gassion? You love to cross-examine me, no?
No,
I'm giving
I can
you a
cross-examine you.
chance. All right, I'll let you. You have a question? Oh, yeah, okay.
Anybody else in the public?
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name for me.
Oh, I
Peter Zizialko, M-I-Z-I-A-L-K-O.
Thank you.
And that's it, you need an address or?
That-
I just have the problem with the 24 hours. I have the 112 Union Avenue building, and right now it's pretty loud. A lot of things, I have complaints from my tenants with the social club. When they get out, they have their little get-togethers. So I have them always calling me, and there's nothing much I could do about that. I said, well, you have to call the police if it's that bad. But this thing is 24 hours a day. A gentleman behind me, he said, wow, you got 2 blocks from north. We all know, we grew up around this area. I mean, I live down in Tom's River now, but I grew up here. It's a tough area. I mean, you know what happened at that bar the other a couple of years ago or whatever. I mean, that's not unusual. I mean, that was, but to have incidents like that. And I don't know, are there any other places in Belleville that have 24 hours?
We're not aware of them.
So now you're bringing people right to this place because it's the only one around. I mean, that's all I have to say. I know I'm not going to stop anything. I wouldn't want to.
Listen to all the concerns of the citizens, that's why we're here, you know.
And if
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, and if they're gonna take those trees down and that friggin' fence, I mean, those things are about 6 feet wide and they're just a nuisance.
Whose property are they on?
They're on both properties.
They straddle the line.
I mean, they're
We
just,
could.
I mean, it's not my property, it's the other owner,
The
but
driveway behind you, right?
I'm the driveway next to it, but those things they're just a danger. That's it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? I think everyone has a problem with these hours. Is it possible that you're able to negotiate something better?
My client obviously is the the applicant here, but 7-Eleven is the one that has a policy of 24 hours. What I looked at is there is no restriction on hours in this zone. However, there are zones in town that do have restrictions, and those zones are restricted not to be allowed to be open from midnight to 5 a.m. Obviously, if the board were to see fit to approve this application, you have the right to condition any approval on the hours, but the only logical hours, in my opinion, because that's what your own ordinance says, would be to limit it to 12 p.m. and not allow them to open 5 till 5 a.m. I've been to the 7-Eleven, and I'm talking from my experience, not a witness, where it opens at 5 a.m. I also think that there are some Belleville stores that are open 24 hours. My job is to get an approval for this application. I'm not about to debate the board on what's open 24 hours and what's not open 24 hours. I would like to be able to sum up, however, I'm just answering the one question. If there's any other comments.
Mr. Mafucci, I think, has a comment. You could do your summation.
Thank you.
We just approved last week on Franklin Avenue, 6 to 10.
I
And
truly, Patty, don't
I
think
tend to,
that there won't be a 7-Eleven if that happens. They are very, you're dealing with a chain, and I'm not trying to put pressure on anybody, but they just don't, they have certain requirements. I deal with chains all the time representing clients, whether it's Wawa or Walgreens or whatever it may be. They got requirements, and that kind of restriction is, it's not, the store's not going to wind up going there. And again, our ordinance, the Belleville ordinance, when it restricts, says restricted between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. And I'm hopeful that if this board were to see fit to give an approval and have that restriction, hopefully the 7-Eleven would come to town, because I think there's a lot of benefits if it does. But again, I'll sum up after Victor talks.
No, he's talking about the quick check that was approved for the redevelopment zone, I believe where #1 school was. So it was 1
just
to
had
5.
the approval last week for the pharmacy, and it was 6 to 10.
I think this
That was the
store
pharmacy,
is
but the quick check.
a lot of their
did,
business is
1 to
coffee.
5.
I mean, 6 o'clock to me is too late for business based on coffee. People in the morning,
I'm
I think
worried
5
about
o'clock.
midnight. I'm worried about midnight, not in the morning.
Victor?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do. Victor Mafucci, 61 Continental Avenue, Belleville. I would also like to see this approved with modifications. You've heard a lot of the recommendations. And the one thing, if it's approved, when the trailer comes, it shouldn't be too early in the morning or too late at night, because there are people nearby. No matter how well you do it, there will be noise unloading the trailer. So people will be sleeping. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you, and there's a fine line between not making noise late at night and you want to do it when there's no traffic so you can safely do it. So that's a fine line that I think 7-Eleven deals with this all over the state, all over the country, and I think they know what's the best time to deliver it. I think that's something we should leave up to them. And if it's a problem, we could address it, but I think they know what's best. You know, they have hundreds of stores, and they know when they should come without disturbing the neighbors, but yet not trying to unload a trailer when you got cars backing in and out.
Right, but I'm saying like 8 p.m. to 11.
I just think it's something
There
they
shouldn't be that much traffic.
should know what's best.
Okay, that was it.
Is there any other comments from the audience? If not, Mr. Gassion, if you'd like to make your submission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, a couple of comments on what was said. First, it's a pleasure to hear Mr. Frantantoni's in favor of something. He's talking about changing the whole layout. I mean, we have an engineer that worked this out as to how he felt was best. and he's a professional, and we went over various layouts, and this is what's best, and we get 10 spaces. The way it was before was random parking. It wasn't that easy the way Jackie's was. As to the numbers of people, I don't think that's tremendously relevant, but the planner for the town talked about how for many years the town's been basically the same population, for many, many years. He talked about the number of residents, and he talked about the number of school children. The issue of the no left turn out onto Belleville Avenue. Obviously, we've got to get a county approval before we know whether that would be permitted anyway, and the recommendation that I had was give us a period of time to try it. If it doesn't work, we got to come back before the board. Mr. Mizzialco, his concern is 24 hours, and his concern is noise. I don't think you're going to have a noise problem. I understand his concern with regard to 24 hours. Now, again, the Belleville ordinance allows 24 hours at this location, and there probably are a number of 24-hour places, but I understand the board has the control with regard to this, and where they prohibit, where the town ordinance prohibits 24 hours, it says you could be open except between midnight and 5 a.m. So I think that is a logical condition if that's what you want to make. But as to the entire application, the use is permitted. The master plan goal is to enhance commercial areas in Belleville. This 7-Eleven will enhance a commercial area. This is a commercial area. This is not a residential corner. This has been a business corner all my life, which is long, fortunately for me. The master plan goal provides for reconstruction of older, non-residential areas and maintaining existing jobs and providing new jobs. This is going to improve the looks of that neighborhood, improve that corner. We're getting rid of a discordant use, which is a two-family. We're getting rid of an old building. Again, we all went to Jackie's Lemon Ice. Not as many of us went to RITA'S Lemon Ice, but it was an institution. But it's over the hill. It's gone. There's a little old building there. We got to improve it. You're getting rid of what is, again, a non-compliant two-family, and probably there's another violation. Two principal uses on the same lots are probably another violation. It's a better zoning alternative, this proposal. It's an aesthetic improvement. It benefits the area. It benefits the area residents. There's no substantial impairment to the master plan or zoning ordinance. It's a C2 because the benefits outweigh the detriment. It's a C1 because of the unique shape of the property in that there's only 90 foot of depth. We're up against the social club wall, no windows. Don't create a problem with one of the variances. The corner lot creates some of the parking issues, but not a parking variance because we have more than enough spaces. The tall fence with the privacy slats separates the properties. The sign variance is needed for safety and identification. We got a building that's set back. We need the sign up front so that people can recognize it. 7-Eleven doesn't have a great amount of signs. They're a well-known entity. All you got to see is one sign. The deliveries will be off-peak hours. The 7-Eleven I go to at 5:15 in the morning when I go for my coffee and hope that the newspaper's there, that's when the delivery truck's there. It's there at 5, 5:30, 5:45. That's, I assume, when they make their deliveries. Again, this is a permitted use. It's a new business. It's an employment opportunity. You're eliminating a discordant use, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important. More than adequate parking. We will have the 10th space, which the chairman carefully pointed out might be a little difficult to get in and out, as an employee space. The 24-hour issue I'm going to address again, 12 to 5, that's what the ordinance has when you prohibit 24 hours. Now, the very important thing is what the mayor said. He's worried about the school children passing. My client will absolutely, we got crossing guards, I think probably on 3 or 4 of the corners there, but we will add a crossing guard for the time children walk by this and beyond, at least an hour. So you going by in the morning, they're there for 15 or 20 minutes, but we an hour in the morning, and if we have to be more than an hour in the afternoon, we will. I think we're all worried about children's safety. So we will do that absolutely unequivocally. And one other thing, as a part of the application, we're consolidating the lots. I don't know if I made that clear when I opened. But I thank the board for all their time and consideration and the raising of all the issues. But I certainly think this is a commercial corner. This is a use that's good for Belleville. It's something that provides reasonably priced, good food. It's a good chain. We could use this kind of thing at this location. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Gassion. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this application with the following conditions? Number one is the crossing guard for the driveway on school days, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. No 24 hours. The facility will be closed between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. The third is employee parking only in the last spot on the north side of Union Avenue. Number five, that they agree to all the conditions of Mr. Harris and Mr. DiLorenzo's reports. And number six, Belleville Avenue driveway, a entrance only. I thought that was a good suggestion, and for safety's sake, I think that would be the best solution. So
And those variances are also approving site plan preliminary and final and all the variances.
There was one more condition, perpetual access to the property for repairs for that building.
I don't think that's a problem, but if the social club needs access to a roof or something, they would give them access.
We have no objection to that.
Just one modification to the first condition for the schoolyard. I think they should get a school schedule, because some days are single session, and we want that covered.
Good point. That's definitely acceptable, because there's sometimes they get out at 12 o'clock, right? You're
As
right.
opposed to 3 or whatever, and sometimes there's no school, and, you know, of course.
Can 7-Eleven, can they supply their own school guard? Because if we do, I have to give them so many hours.
No, we're going to supply it. We're paying for it, we're supplying it. Absolutely.
You want to sign? Mr. DiLorenzo suggested a sign, caution, children crossing in the driveway.
Certainly.
And then you're also looking for a lot consolidation. reverse
Please,
subdivision.
Mr. DiLorenzo.
So Michelle, we have all those, right? All conditions? Would someone,
I'll make a motion. So we accept it.
Lois, call a roll?
Mr. Venero,
Yes.
Mayor Kimball,
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurata,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Bowe.
Yes.
Thank you again for your time and attention, all the hours you put in.
Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion. Let me get out of here.